Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am the co-owner of the Crucible, Pedro, and we have a thought-provoking interaction for you tonight. Culture Thug and Counterpoints will be attacking the subject of what we can call for now culture and allow our debaters to flesh out more during the broadcast. Pay attention closely, ladies and gentlemen, because what will happen here before our eyes is something very important, or Andrew would have never placed it on the schedule to begin with. Enjoy. But before we get to that, we would request you all subscribe to our channel on Twitch right now by clicking the link at the top of the description or pinned in the top of the live chat. We are a young channel, ladies and gentlemen, and are constantly trying to expand. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you feel you want to help us create something for this to grow even more and keep that nice steady drip of content going, donate to us through PayPal, join and become a member on YouTube, or become a Patreon. Any and everything helps us complete the work we are trying to do, which is ultimately to create a battleground, a public square where we can fight for and proclaim the truth. Welcome back, and glad to have you, everyone, to the Crucible. Enjoy. All right, and welcome back, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I got no one right now to help me on sound, but we're going to head right into it. Tonight, I'm going to bring on first my guest mod. I have Chad Homino coming on. Say what's up, Chad.
Yo, what's up, guys? How's it going?
Awesome, good. Hey, so already we have first runner-up. Counterpoints, been on the channel before. Introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. I identify as centrist, center-right, but I think that in relative terms to Twitch, compared to some people on this channel, I'm going to be like a filthy commie. But basically, like, I'm always happy to engage with my roots. I come from Christian conservatives. I had libertarian sympathies when I was younger, and I still identify a lot of those things as extremely important in how I live my life and how I develop myself as a person. So I try to defend the things worth defending from the right to the left and have mixed results. So yeah, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and happy to be around a bunch of killers. So it's good. Good stuff.
All right, and then next up, we have CT. Say what's up, CT.
Hey, how's it going? I make videos under the name Cultured Thug. You can find my streams at the New Frontier YouTube page. You could find my video history on Odyssey under Cultured Thug, a channel there where you'll find a collection of breakdowns of what I advocate, which is third position populism. So I'm an advocate for that, and that's what all my content is about. It's promoting it, explaining it, and trying to educate on it.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, we're going to get it started. Just for the new people out there, how this works is each person gets 7 minutes of an opening statement. After that, they go into 1 hour to 1 hour and 30 minutes of cross-examination of each other, and then another 7-minute closing statement, followed by moderator questions, and then audience questions, and then it wraps the show up, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm not going to take any more time away from this. I'm really interested to see what these guys get into, and I'm going to start with Culture Thug to see where we're going to go. So go for it, Culture Thug.
I'm actually going to pass it to Counterpoints because I have no idea of where this conversation is heading. So I'll let him kind of lay the course for us, and we'll address whatever he wants to bring up.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to highlight my worldview. Basically, I was raised liberal, right? I was born in the late 80s. I had, the what do you call it? Power Rangers worldview, where, there's the Yellow Ranger who's Asian, and there's the Red Ranger who's the white guy, and there's the this and the that, and the magical school bus and the liberal mentality that we're all equal. But also simultaneously, it seemed like everybody was the same. And as I grew up, I kind of realized that's not quite true, right? Like we're all a little bit different. We come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different languages, different cultures, all this kind of stuff. And so as a result, the world got more complex, but I still had this underlying idea that we, as Americans, specifically the United States of America, it doesn't matter where you come from, we all fight for each other. I joined the military, and I served in law enforcement, and, a lot of the problems that the distant right brings up, whether that's immigration or crime stats or anything like that, these are all things that impacted my daily view, but the core of what I believed in, which is we should treat each other as human beings first and then see how we can kind of build some kind of communal project, that still has stuck with me through the challenges and travails that I actually bumped into in the real world. When I came into online politics, what was actually kind of frustrating for me is I felt like a lot of important conversations were being boiled down to talking points, whether that's 1350 or triple parentheses or any of these things that like sometimes we can't even talk about these things because they're so sensitive. But that's not how I was raised. What I was raised with is if you have a problem, you say it. My family's from the Northeast. We're a bunch of Yankees, which means that you rip out the problems that are, in front of your face. You talk shit about them. You get angry. You fight each other, and then you give each other a hug, and then you keep it moving. That's how you deal with problems in a familial sense, and that's, I think, how we should deal with problems in a national sense as well. The problem with that is that it seems like there's a bunch of entrenched factions that already have their ideas and views of the world. They have a bunch of descriptive problems that I might be able to agree with. There's a series of prescriptive issues that I don't necessarily think I do agree with. And that's where if I bump into a Groyper or a distant right or an ethnonat or a fascist or a political corporatist, we have like wildly different views of what the future looks like and what it means to be right wing. And then when it comes to the left, I can sympathize with the liberal worldview, but not liberals themselves. So, for instance, like I believe in a syncretic, federal, statist, slightly economic, redistributivist political faction, but liberals themselves are spineless and are incapable of defending the institutions that actually allow their world to thrive. And furthermore, they don't even know how to articulate why their worldview is just, and yet it somehow has become a world hegemon. Once you go further left, you get into socialism, communism, and all that kind of stuff. I never doubt the motivations of the people that are there, but I find them wildly naive and wildly ignorant of history. And that's one of the reasons why I fight leftists all the time. I fight socialists, I fight communists, I fight progressives, is because I think that they have a bunch of really good intentions and a lot of really shitty prescriptions and even some pretty shitty descriptions. And so what sucks for me is I feel like I'm a little bit without a tribe, but I want to fight for the right that I believe in. Maybe I was raised with an ideal version of what America was when I was a child, but just because that was the propaganda I was fed as a child doesn't mean that it can't be an ideal to strive for. And so actually kind of putting all my cards on the table, Keith Woods and Cultured Thug were two of the people that I was shown clips of where I was like, holy shit, people on the far right who aren't absolute fucking lunatics, who can actually articulate a coherent worldview, who can back up their perspectives historically and actually have something coherent to sell. And on one hand, I'm like, wow, that's dangerous because going after somebody who's put together sucks. On the other hand, if I'm going to talk to somebody in that space, that's the kind of person that I need to talk to because the future of the right is important. Are we just a stick in the mud that is slowly going to be dragged by progressives and leftists? Or are we actually going to offer a coherent worldview that offers a positive future, not necessarily like positive emotionally, but positive constructively, where we're actually going to offer the young people of America something to look forward to rather than a bunch of things to be afraid of? And that's really my project tonight, is to kind of, poke the head and poke the hornet's nest. What are we doing? What are we doing on the right wing? What are we doing on the far right? What is the plan? And does it involve a bunch of like bullshit fucking memes that just piss off our fellow countrymen? Or does it involve a future that actually most or all Americans can be a part of and be proud of? And so that's kind of my project here tonight, and I yield the rest of my time.
All right, awesome. Thank you. CT, did you still want to take your 7 minutes, or did you just want to jump into the
We'll just jump into the back and forth, yeah.
Good to go. All right, so go for it. I'll just reset this timer, and the floor is open, gentlemen.
Well, I agree with you as far as not having a tribe. I felt the same way. That's why I started advocating for third position. It really wasn't a thing when I started making educational videos. Like things like that didn't exist. Typically, it was what we call like the Hollywood Nazi, right? This stereotype, this caricature that the media puts out there, and you would see people online calling themselves fascist or Nazis or whatever, living up to this caricature, which is essentially promoted as racist authoritarianism, right? This was kind of the whole perception of it. So that's when I started making the educational videos and trying to like actually show people, no, this actually comes from a political philosophy. This actually comes from uh, history being created by men who rejected capitalism and Marxian socialism and communism, right? And then this is where this idea comes from. It's not what the Hollywood caricatures say they are. And making those educational videos, I'm not going to say it was solely because of that, but for numerous reasons, third position started getting popular in the dissident right, mainly around like 2015, 16 really started picking up, and a lot of people calling themselves this, but many of them still kind of living up to that caricature. So I saw like, well, this isn't the tribe I was looking for, and this is why we started New Frontier. We had to create our own because, as you've acknowledged, the dissident right is scattered all over the place. It's just fractions of people who spend more time fighting each other than actually addressing the system or trying to have real world answers to the problems we're dealing with. And yeah, we're lost in the memes and the internet. And I don't think there's many serious people involved. I think a lot of people are kind of irony bros or black pilled people or people who just want to have a laugh and let off steam online. And I think that probably hurts us more than anything else is the whole dissident right. There's very few serious people, so you don't get kind of serious responses to the problem of the day and pragmatic solutions to them. This is why most of the dissident right and even the people on the extreme left are kind of more lost in idealism and fantasy than actual pragmatic, realistic solutions that can manifest, within our lifetime. And so I feel your pain trying to find where you fit in, but sometimes you have to create your own path. And that's what we're doing with third position. Even though there's other people that call themselves fascist or third position, there's many different brands, and I get that exists, but you have to stay pure to the values you hold. And that's what we're doing at New Frontier. We put our values into a platform and then want to back that up with action of trying to get on a political stage and promote this ideology to people, promote this way of life for people, promote this, I guess, answer to this corrupt system, kind of this cycle we've been stuck in since I've been born. I'm 43 now, and it's been the same game over and over again with Team Red, Team Blue, and now Americans treat politics even much more like sports than they ever did. It's just about having your team win at the end of the day. It's not really even about getting results from them. The Republicans, Trump didn't come through on what he promised to his supporters. Biden's not coming through to what he promised to his supporters. And kind of that's how we've always accepted it. Every president's done that. And it's just usually you're going against the other team. You want the other team to lose. So I think it takes more people coming out of the dissident right with seriousness, actually having passion for something, and trying to be pragmatic and realistic and manifest a challenge to the system. I think we're in that process now. It might not look pretty, but looking at history, it kind of always plays out like this. Until Trump came, you could have thought the Republicans, they had no life in them at all, no energy. It was Mitt Romney's and McCain's and people like Jeb Bush's, people like this, right? And then it took one Trump coming in to kind of change the whole political field into where we're at today. This is how I think it's going to play out in the dissident right too. There's going to come a person or a belief or a platform, whatever it is, that's going to show it has a potential to win. And I think you will see a lot of the fractured right kind of line up right behind that and support that, just like they did with Trump, just like the left did with Bernie, especially in 2016. Just like that, I think we're kind of on that same path. It's just a bunch of us are trying to figure out what can we do to try to challenge this system that I find degenerate, corruptive, and oppressive, and all of this stuff. So I think that's where we're all at in the dissident right. And the shit posters, the memers, and all that, there's a lot of kids in this scene too, which for better or worse, revolution is a young man's sport. So you want the younger people to be invested in their politics because what happens in the next 20 years are going to affect them the most. as they're growing up into this. So a part of that, you're going to have the growing pains of, you know, a lot of the jokes, a lot of the shit posting. And then, like I said, for better or worse, sometimes that propaganda works. Humiliating your opponent, you know, it's a very effective tactic. And I think the alt-right especially showed that, especially during 16 and all of that.
Okay. Well, I guess the memes, as we're gonna call it, the frustrating part for me with that is, like you said, young kids, this, that, the other. It's hard to know who's serious and who's not until they just fucking tell you, right? And there's some people who lean into the racist authoritarian memes, oh, well, I'm going to, wear this fascist memorabilia, I'm going to do a Roman salute, this, that, the other. And they're just going to tell you that they're memeing up until they're not, right? And then that's kind of where, for me, trying to suss out what the future of the right is, I don't think that has a future. I don't think Roman salutes, basically readopting, Mein Kampf or like ethnic struggle for whatever the new corporative identity in the United States is. I don't think that has a future because it's not only is it politically unpopular, but there's so much weight behind it being politically unpopular, and I think for good reason. So I think that if you look at like mass slaughter in general as a political tool, that's one of the worst things that we can do to each other as human beings. So if we can have politics that avoids mass slaughter, then that's kind of going to be at least one of my prerogatives. So the thing about it is, paperwork nationalism is often one of the main things that I will have dissident right people attack me over. They'll say, oh, what, you think you can pick like 3 or 4 core values and then you can have people from a whole bunch of different ethnicities and languages get together and somehow this is going to be sufficient for like a corporative identity to form a nation around? And I can see the weaknesses of it, but what I would say is that I identify more, I'm ethnically Celt, like I'm Irish, right? I identify more with young men who work their asses off, take care of their families, pay their fucking taxes, pay attention to the world, pay attention to their friends, pay attention to their family, and also are willing to sacrifice themselves towards, the nation, the United States in this case, because I live in the United States. And when I joined the military and when I joined law enforcement, I was a city police for 4 years. My brothers and sisters in arms were from all different ethnicities. I had a Filipino female lesbian supervisor. I had a Puerto Rican supervisor who I loved. When I was in the military, one of my best friends was Cambodian. One of my other best friends was like, mixed black, and he had like a stoner accent, and he was from some, the burbs in Texas. And then my other supervisor who I loved was from, New York, and he was black as shit and strong as fuck and kind of a wild person. But I love these people, and I love them as brothers, and I love them as sisters. So compare that to the love I'm supposed to have for an ethnic identity or an ethnos or whatever, and it doesn't compare, because I've already met quality people from different tribal groups that were all cohered. Whether you say that through it's like propaganda or it's synthetic or whatever, it doesn't matter, because it was real enough for us to do what we do. And so that's where, for me, the solution wouldn't be leaning back on a political ethos or leaning back on an ethnic group in order to try to like cohere a new sense of identity. It would be kind of like leaning forward and saying like, hey, what makes an American an American? How do we unify all these people into at least some coherent vision of the future of the country that actually includes all people, so we can avoid mass slaughter? And then move that project forward. Ethnos feels like a step back. And then one of the things that I would thank, Keith Woods for is actually one of his videos. You came highly recommended, but you were only on BitChute at the time. So Keith, one of the things that he articulated was like political corporatism, treating the entire nation state like a body. And if something's broken, then you fix it or you mend it. And if something's not working properly, then how do we address this? I'm perfectly okay with political corporatism. What I'm not okay with when you're talking like fascism or third positionism is the flexible authoritarianism, where whoever is strongest is going to get to the top. Whatever political system advocates the most health for the political corporative body, that's just what we need to do. Because what I see when I look in history is I don't see a bunch of strong men who did what needs doing. I see a bunch of strong men who said that they were going to do what needs doing, and then they did whatever the fuck they wanted on the back end for their own power and their own friends and their own nepotism. So that's where, for me, my rejection of fascism is not in the concept of identifying a political body and then treating it as a coherent whole, and also seeing how we can reinforce that structure. The problem is the flexible authoritarianism that comes as a prescription, at least as far as I understand it when it comes to fascism. And I'll leave it there.
Okay. Couple things there. Yeah, the Roman salutes and things like this. Yeah, that's we're in agreement there. It's not going to catch on. It repulses people. It's whether rightly or wrongly. I mean, it's basically become a black mark for people to engage in that. There was just the docs on the group Patriot Front this weekend, and they had a lot of video of them doing that after giving the Roman salutes after they thought they were off camera, right? And then so they use this now. Obviously, they're going to use this to throw it into their face because they know how that looks to people, how most Americans think about when they see stuff like that. So yeah, obviously you're not going to be able to rely on that. We are born into this multiracial country. You and I, right? We had no say in any of this. We're just born into this world, and we have to deal with the world we're born into. And that ideal, your Power Rangers ideal, as silly as it is, yeah, that should be something we can still manifest in this country. And this is where populism and third position in particular comes into play. You say, like, how can we and it's not about, when we're talking about third position, you have to remember it's not talking about specifically Italy or Germany. The thing with third position is it's an organic political philosophy, which carries the characteristics and the history of the country that is being birthed in at the time. So that's why Germany looked different than Italy. That's why the Falange in Spain were different from the British Union of Fascists in England. That's why the Synarchists in Mexico are different from the integralists of Brazil, all these third position groups. That's why American third position, populist third position would look very different too and have American characteristics. And a part of that is we are a very mixed nation, not only race, religion, regionalism, all of these things come into play. And our obstacles, like, diversity is not our strength. Diversity is an obstacle we have to work with and figure out how can we make this country thrive and move forward, even though people are so different, even though people have so many different interests too. So a part of that is having the common interest of people that we know most people want. Things like healthcare, things like access to education, things like a respectful job and appreciated for your job, right? Things like a government that supports you as you support the government as well. You put into it, you get out of it. These are things that blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, etc., purple people, pink people, they all will appreciate these, and they all will appreciate a government that truly has their interest at heart. And then they're willing to work for that system and buy into it, even if they have to sacrifice more, or now at least they know they're getting something from their sacrifice. They're not left by themselves, kind of how they are today. So I think through these policies, through populism in particular, this is why I think you've seen this kind of fear over populism, because it's something that hasn't shown up in America since the 20s and 30s, and it's kind of once again rebirth, even though under someone like Trump, that was still something that at least opened the door to that again. And I think you can find common interests. And as far as the hierarchy, well, it's through merit at the end of the day. So if merit decides, if you by your quality get into yourself a position to where people accept you as a leader and endorse you as that and support you as that, you will earn that position. It's not simply through strength. It's not simply through killing people or brute strength. It is through your merit. And that's how every position in the society should be filled. The best person for each job. Like, it sounds fantastic, but it's not. It's not. It is doable. And that's a true meritocracy that third position supports. So hopefully your hierarchy, which is why it's more advantageous to, this is why I'll always prefer a dictator over a president, is because you know who's to blame when things are not going right. When you have a leader, when you have these stewards, right, who are replaced every 4 to 8 years, They can blame everyone. There's never accountability to them to why things are going wrong. So they can always worm out of it. With a leader, for better or worse, it's going to fall on them. The praise for success or, the contempt from failure will always do that. So I always prefer, I don't view a strong leader as a nefarious or scary thing. If it's someone who does have their interest, and we can look to Italy and Germany and see they did radically change the economy. They did help the working people, improve birth rates, things like this, things like they promised to do, because what benefited them was making their country stronger too. And to make your country stronger, they have to be mentally, physically, much more in tune. They have to have access to the healthcare that they were given and all of these things. And they have to have some kind of pride in working for the system. I think third position really taps into this. I think it's one of the few political doctrines out there that considers a human dynamic. Liberalism really doesn't consider the human dynamic. Communism damn sure doesn't. People only exist as numbers as far as that is. So I think third position considers this human dynamic and tries to help us where we're weak for, whatever our primitive urges are. Like we see with the vice industry is our biggest industry in America. Why? Because you can easily tap into that. So you have a state that protects you from that and doesn't feed off of your vice. At the same time, they help build your higher self because they want the better person. So to me, that always just made more sense than liberalism ever did. Kind of everyone's their own little island in the world. And this is how we look at it. I always viewed us as we're all links in a chain with each other. We're all unified. Back to the corporate mentality. It's not only in economics, but it's in society. We all, if like you're saying, if the Black community is going through all these things that they're going through, I mean, right now, today, single parents, high crime, large school dropouts. What do we do about that? There's a segment of our community that's hurting, right? So we throw money at it, we pander. We see this has not been working at all. In a true corporative society, you would address those problems and solve them. That's where the focus of the brainiacs, the money, the programs would all go towards, why is this happening? How do we change it and address that? Liberalism doesn't give us that. It doesn't look at us as a corporative system. It doesn't look at us as all connected with, even though it says, right, and it panders. It doesn't address the problems like this. So I always looked at third position as far superior to the central planning of communism and to kind of the reign of the oligarchies that's under liberalism.
Yeah, so this kind of, I don't know if you have like a notepad or something, but you do give me a lot, and then I'm giving you a lot in return. I do like it because I can track it because I'm taking notes, but I also want you to track what I'm saying too. So,
Okay.
so my thing is, when you say that political corporatism or third positionism or whatever factors in human nature, I kind of don't agree. And the reason why is actually very specifically what you said with meritocracy. I wish meritocracy were real. I wish meritocracy was something that we could somehow culturally enforce. I don't think it's just liberalism that allows for meritocracy to not be in place. And I think that when you look at the oligarchical structures of like neo-monarchy, like monarchy throughout history, which I think that fascism is kind of like politically akin to, I think that if you look at the flexible authoritarianism or dictatorship, that through human nature, you're going to have a certain level of nepotism. And there's going to be nepotism of the state and nepotism of the party and nepotism of populism and nepotism of the people in power and this, that, the other. And so when I hear like, hey, give it to the smart people, give it to the intelligent people, give it to the strong people, give it to the people who can earn their slot through struggle. Basically what I hear is, hey, make it like Twitch politics. And I fucking hate Twitch politics because it is rhetoric and persona and charisma and being able to charm the masses. It has very little to do with actual technical competence. And one of the things that's like actually really frustrating for me is when the reason why I'm hostile to populism as a concept is because when it comes to populism, I don't view that as some like technocratic or meritocratic, like, new thing that we're going to do. I view that as bread and circus for the masses in order to gain popular support. Now, maybe there's a technocratic way to gain the popular support that warrants you being in office. But at the same time, it's like, goddamn, man, like this is just like political shit show theater that's going to get like the same manipulative assholes that we've already had in power for long periods of time in power. And then so when it comes to, like you said, you would prefer a dictator over a president because for better or worse it's able to hold people accountable. To me, this like reminds me of like the mandate of heaven from like a Chinese imperialism, where basically like if the country was going well, thank the emperor. If the country was going poorly, blame the emperor, chop off his head, and put in a new emperor, right? But that's easier said than done. When you're talking about deposing an emperor or deposing a dictator who has the backing of the military, who has his boys in the institutions, all of these things are easier said than done. And so when you're literally telling normal people, hey, bro, like, the dictator or whatever, he says you can't have guns because that's bad for society. Oh, wait, the dictator also says that he gets to fuck your wife. Oh, wait, the dictator also says that we're going to do price controls in order to keep the masses happy. Oh, wait, we tank the economy. Oh, wait, the people are pissed off. Oh, wait, the soldiers are, killing the civilians in the streets. When I look at history, that's what I see when it comes to dictatorship and monarchy. We might have a rotating cast of nefarious, oligarchical dickheads in the United States, but I don't see any famines for the past century. And I also don't see any, like, I do see wars. I do see constant war, and maybe we can get into that. But I don't see, like, at least with the United States, the mass ethnic purges that are typically associated with the history of third positionism. Finally, there's two more points that I want to address. One of them is, it's okay, like, having a dictatorship is okay as long as the dictator is competent. What sucks, though, is when he hands it off to an incompetent. When you're talking about the great men of history who are actually capable of running societies almost by themselves because they're politically intelligent and technocratically savvy, I think of Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius turned over power to fucking Commodus, who was a fucking dickhead, and basically burned the empire within a generation. So that's where I'm saying it's like, when great men societies work when there's great men societies do not work when the great men appoint dickheads into the office. And then my final point, you're right that liberalism is individualistic and doesn't solve a lot of the needs that we're currently seeing within our populace. That's not how it has to be. So communitarianism, I don't like collectivism. I don't like individualism. I like communitarianism. Political corporatism is one of the very interesting things that fascism taught me, which is it's not the individual and it's not the collective. It's both of them in balance and concert with each other. And so from a communitarian standpoint, you can teach people communitarianism. And we used to have this through institutions like the church, but the church is dying. So now we have nihilistic, hedonistic, self-centered, individualistic cunts running our society and, like you said, profiting off of our vices. And I think that's evil and it needs to be called out. But I don't think the answer to individualism is collectivism. I think the answer to individualism is communitarianism. And I do want to ask a question, even though I've given you a lot to address. You mentioned that you believe that aspects of our society are degenerative, corruptive, and oppressive. And my question surrounding that is that typically when people hear that, so, you mentioned like black folk, Asian folk, maybe like Jewish folk or whatever. In the American tapestry of diversity, you can incorporate languages and religions and all that kind of stuff into whatever this like civ nat political corporate third positionism is. One of the things that I think alarms a lot of like liberals or progressives is kind of the silence on trans people or gay people. I know that Christian nationalists would prefer that these folk just go back in the closet, but from your perspective with like New Frontier or whatever, are gay folk and trans folk part of that like corruptive and degenerate society? Do they have to go back into the closet, or are they capable of being integrated into the tapestry of humanity?
All right, CT, it sounds like Counterpoints is pushing Christian imperialism. Let's go. What do you have to say to that?
I think we believe at New Frontier, every American citizen should have the same rights. So and that goes with gay people, that goes with transsexual people, and all of this. But we also believe there is a time and place for everything. I don't believe in, let alone heterosexual sexualization of children of all over the place. Uh, Also with homosexual as well. I don't think these places should have a place in the culture war, I guess, or be promoted as that. Every American should have the same right. That's fine, but at the same time, certain things shouldn't be promoted, especially the children. And I think that's where we have to learn to draw the line with that topic. Everyone has the same access. Everyone has the same rights, but at the same time, the media does not have the right to push subversive stuff they know is going to uh, cause conflict between different segments of the population. And I think they purposefully do this. So
Can I
yeah,
ask you a
that's
follow-up
a
question along with that?
yeah, yeah.
So when we talk about like degenerative industry or capitalizing off of people's vices,
Hmm.
sex is obviously like a big temptation for a lot of folks.
Hmm.
Alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, all that kind of stuff. These are things that seem to be more popular than ever, not less popular.
Hmm.
But you could call these things vices, and you could call these things bad for society. So what's kind of like your perspective? What's your perspective on those kinds of vices? Like, do you just age gate them, culture gate them? Do you prohibit marketing? Like, what's But then that's also the question too. Is like, so you're CT, you got this
Hmm.
vision, you're trying to
Hmm.
popularize this vision, but you're not necessarily the person who's going to be in charge of the populist wave that sweeps somebody into office. It's going to be somebody else. So even if you give
Hmm.
me your answer, there could be a different person with different definitions of degeneracy. So what are your definitions, and how do you see that battle in subjectivity over what's degenerate being fought out in the dissident right?
Well, as far as what is degeneracy, I think it's, I think largely when we speak about it today, it is our primal urges, call it our id brain, whatever you want, that is biologically necessary, especially at a later time of history, for us to survive and thrive and advance, continue on the species. That is tapped into by advertisement, that makes us focus on these things because they're powerful biological drivers in us. So when you have advertisement, selected advertisement aimed at these vices, let's say, and that's what's used to build this big business of the whole vice industry. um, Removing that, you brought up three things. The culture, yeah, you make, when I was growing up, consuming porn was a shameful thing. They used to be in the video stores, right? They'd have a back section and it kind of be curtained off, and the person would go there and kind of have his head down, he'd check it out, he wouldn't go make eye contact with the person at the register, and he'd take his video, go home, do his thing. It was shameful then. It wasn't something to be proud about, right? The culture was different. So, and for that reason, you didn't have like all the numbers you have now. Like, we lead the world in consuming this stuff, right? This is where we're at now. Now it's become okay. Now you're weird if you don't like porn. Now something's wrong with you if you're not into that scene, right? So taking the culture is a big part of it too. If you make it shameful, yeah, you don't get rid of it, but you make it a lot less. You minimalize it, and that's one big thing that needs to change, and that is directly with advertisement. Back to understanding the human dynamic. When you understand that under capitalism, this is all good. If it makes profit, it's fine. Doesn't matter we're more obese than ever. Doesn't matter we're ODing more than ever. Doesn't matter suicides up more than ever. None of this matters. As long as profits being made, that's good for capitalism. That's what makes profit is good. What doesn't make profit is evil. Right. And this is the moral of capitalism. So since they can make all this money off the vice industry, because this is such a powerful part of us, of our drive, that you can tap into. Like I said, it doesn't mean we're all robots and everyone goes for it. No, but we see the numbers, we see the stats, we see where all the money goes. So we see it works when they push this like targeted advertisement at people for these things. So you remove the culture and you remove the ability to advertise these things like that. Then on top of that, I would say you add vice tax to these things, to alcohol, to tobacco, to pornography, limit it to where it's only paid things, where children do not have access to it anymore, and things like that. So I think you can limit all these things without erasing them and getting rid of them. Because once again, by understanding the human dynamic, by understanding if you promote, if the billboards are not like half naked girls all over the place, but a healthy family or a healthy body, and that's what people see all around them all the time, instead of the porn, the fast food, the sexualization of everything, and whatever and whatever, right? If they had those images more so, we're going to have a society more inclined to doing that. And I think this is how you combat this promoted degeneracy, because once again, it makes profit, right? And it keeps people docile too at the same time. So they see this works, and it keeps them making more profit than ever, and it keeps the masses just consuming and docile, exactly where they want us, right? The good little worker robots. And to go back to meritocracy real fast too. So we were saying, well, how, of course, you're going to have nepotism. Look, we're humans, right? There's never going to be a perfect anything, right? That's just the reality of it. Never has been, never will be, right? So we try to make the best out of the situation. So of course you're going to have nepotism here and there, whatever. You'll never get rid of that. But when you have nationalized education, when it doesn't matter if you come from a poor family, but if your kid has a talent, he can go to the Ivy League school, because it's not about wealth anymore. It's about how you test. Did you earn it? Can you go to this Ivy League school? I think this helps us with meritocracy more than anything else that's been kind of done under capitalism or liberalism, or even under central planned communism. I think this helps us because it gives everyone access to this true same opportunity, not the same outcomes, but have the true same opportunity, no matter what you're at birth, no matter what you were born, no matter what kind of family you're born into. It's like your merit alone can take you wherever you want to in this world, giving people that access. And same with healthcare as well. Instead of having people struggling, going into debt, especially poor families dealing with cancer or whatever else, you have a state that supports you. You have a state that helps you there, right? Gives you more of a chance to be your best self. So I think we deal with meritocracy. I think, like I said, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but I think we could set up the path to where it can be a lot better than it is now. And to the dictator too, there are ways to deal with a dictator too, and it's not having him pick, use Commodus as an example, not having him pick someone like a Commodus or some person who's less than the last leader. The Italians had a council of 14 people. These 14 people are the ones that disposed Mussolini. It was a fascist council, the Grand Council, and they could elect him out. And that's what they did. So there was an oversight to that. And they also bring in the next person, right? They also would elect the next person. It didn't go on like that because King Emmanuel, took everything over after that. But there are safeguards to that, is what I'm saying. So there are things like councils that do exist. Are any of them like untouchable from corruption? Like I said, we're humans, man. There's always going to be something somewhere, right? There's never going to be this perfect anything. Right? It's going to be human flaws and us trying to overcome that as much as we can. But I just wanted to give you an example. Yeah, there was a dictator, there was oversight over a dictator situation like that. And I also think that's a pretty good model too. If you're going to have a dictator, there should be some kind of council of very educated, trusted people who earn these positions through whatever years of service and dedication and quality of character shown, that have a voice and say, look, you're not doing good anymore. You're not succeeding. We need to replace you with someone who can. And that can do that, have that power. So there's a little check and balance too, even to dictators. I just wanted to point that out.
Can you do another 30 seconds while I let a dog out of a room because he's howling?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are safeguards to this, and it's in collectivism in itself. Once again, what'd you call it? Communalism? Was that what you were referencing? Like you prefer that, not communitarianism? What is that exactly? Like, explain the difference between collectivism and individualism in that.
Yeah, so my understanding of it, and I am, because I'm a debate pro, I'm going to Google it while I'm doing it. But yeah, so a philosophy that emphasizes the connection between the individual and the community. And so you've seen it in like Christian communes before and all that kind of stuff. And basically the whole goal of that kind of philosophy, it kind of, what I was interested in with the, how do I phrase this? The interesting thing about like political corporatism that I heard, haven't read because I'm not that sophisticated, but was eliminating the struggle or accepting the struggle between the individual and the collective, making it, instead of saying like the collective is going to run everything, the collective is the most important thing, we're going to bond together, and then whatever we decide as a group goes. Or individualism, where you say, hey, the individual is inviolable, even if they're doing things that are hurting themselves. There's a certain line that you can't cross, and you can't do anything, against the individual at these certain lines. What communitarianism or even, corporatism would say is that it's a cycle. It's a struggle between these two interests of the collective and the individual. And it's not important to pick a certain rule set that's going to guide you 100% of the time going forward. It's more about the struggle between these two interests and the balancing of these two interests. And the truth is, we do this even in liberal society. If you looked at like the philosophy or the stated like ideology of the founding fathers or libertarians or whatever, it's going to be rugged individualism. The individual is, sacrosanct. They can only take care of themselves. Nobody else can impede on their property, this, that, the other, all this bullshit. But when you look at like modern American society, oftentimes we have collectivist or communal instincts that regulate things. So, whether you're talking about like during the 60s with like, the Federal Communications Act, or whether or not you're talking about like regulations when it comes to the internet, or New York, doing vice taxes on sugar and like all that kind of shit. These are all collectivist or communal impulses that are balanced against the right of the individual. So this is more about recognizing that struggle instead of picking a framework and rigidly sticking with it, and watching the interplay between the two, which I actually found analogous to political corporatism. But I wanted to, just give you a jab, and then kind of ask a few other questions. So you were pointing out that the id is capitalized in order to basically market products. It doesn't even matter what it is. It could be like a Happy Meal toy, and there'll still be like a sexy lady, like, eating the burger or whatever, right? So they're capitalizing on the caveman impulse of human beings in order to sell bullshit to us, and it kind of sucks. But one of the things that I find consistently is oftentimes, third position or fascists will look back into history to call out great societies at their zenith. Obviously, Germany, Italy, Rome. And Rome in particular, the interesting thing to me is that like there's this balance of also like celebrating human impulse, celebrating not vice, but celebrating sex or violence or war or just war or anything like that. And so that would be one of the things that I would point out is we might have different definitions depending on who we're talking about of what vices need to be tamped down on and what ones need to be exercised. And when it comes to like suicide, ODs, obesity, I think you're right that we give way too much leniency to the morality of profit. But I don't think that's the way that it has to be in perpetuity. As a matter of fact, I think we've actually been given an incredible technology to the people. Like I'm a snob. But we all have fucking webcams. We're all across hundreds, if not thousands of miles. We have the ability to create our own culture. We have the ability to talk to each other about what's important in life. What are our spiritual values? What are our civic values? What are the things that we care about? What do we think is important about family? We can create the institutions that are collapsing around us. I know that, we have some religious folk and we have some not religious folk. There are still shared values that the religious and non-religious share that they could basically, what is it? It's like as iron sharpens iron, men sharpen men. We can create the parallel institutions and not be reliant on government in order to do it. And so this is... The problems that I'm having with your ideology, not ideology, but kind of like your perspective is, number one, when I look back in history, I think you can call out all the great moments, but you also have to call out the bad moments. a lot of the places that started with third position philosophy were imperial. They wanted to control other territories. They wanted to expand. They wanted to expand their influence, this, that, the other. And as a result, they invited calamity back into their own homes. They basically went out, kicked everybody's ass, and then the entire world rose up and kicked them right in the teeth. So that's kind of like where the history of, third positionism or whatever, I think is mixed when it comes to long-term sustainability. Also, I appreciate the depth to which you've thought about these ideas and try to promote these ideas and try to balance them against the realities of the world. But my thing wouldn't be whether or not CT gets put into, the chieftain of the United States of America or whatever. My thing is, you would be in the cabinet till you pissed off the wrong guy. He shoots you in the back of the head and say, meritocracy. He should have seen me coming. And then, now that guy's in charge. And so for me, that's my struggle with, kind of like the philosophers and the rulers. My answer is actually relatively simple, which is republicanism. There's a certain amount of rules and statutes and standards that we hold each other to as far as behavior. Allegedly, this isn't true, but allegedly, even if the most rich and powerful people in the world violate these standards and statutes, they can be held accountable by our civil society. Oftentimes they're not because they're rich and they can get away with it. But there's at least an attempt to portray that value publicly. And so for me, the thing is, I'm okay with political corporatism. I'm okay with communitarianism. I'm okay with saying that we are engaged in sinful, using religiously loaded language, but degenerate behavior that are making people's lives worse. But my solution would be we create the solution as a parallel power structure to the government. That way we're not waiting generations for this shit to happen. And then we create our own community separate, which is not technically prohibited under liberalism. We're not going to save everybody, but if we can get some people to stop jacking off as much, stop doing hard drugs, stop, basically treating their bodies like shit, stop treating their families like shit. If we can communicate that to a younger generation, that's the positive vision of the right that I would want to share, where you don't have to destroy liberalism in order to start creating a better community. You actually just have to start with yourself. And then kind of branch out from there. And that's where I see a lot of parallel interest. But then, again, I'll shut up in a second, but the second that people start throwing Roman salutes, that could be a cute meme for some fucking edgy 16-year-old. But what you're telling the rest of the world is like, hey, I think the mass extermination of people along ethnic lines is funny. And even if I doubt the validity of the mass extermination, I think that seizing authoritarian power and killing people who stand against me is fine. And so that's what other people see, is that ethnic authoritarianism. And for me, it's like, why the fuck would I need to go that far? Why the fuck would we need third positionism if we could start something different that would be better, that doesn't involve remaking the wheel, I guess?
So first, the imperial nature of Italy and Germany. We have to remember at that time, kind of like nukes are the new bargaining chip of the modern day. In those times, the colonies were the bargaining chip. England had colonies, France had colonies, America was involved as well in colonizations. So like this was what the world powers, this was what they've had. So it's kind of like we're, judging them with today's morality for the imperialism of the time, when that's kind of was your bargaining chip too, was to have colonies and to expand. This is how you showed as a world power. So it's like, because the point I'm trying to make is it's not inherently in third position to do that. You've had like the other groups who didn't succeed to power, like the Romanian Iron Guard or the Spanish Falange. They never had any ideals of conquest of foreign lands. It was always about their land. So that was kind of it was the times, that was the times for colonies. And after World War II is like the end of like the colonial rule and all of this, when Britain starts falling apart, especially, and France as well, in Africa. So I just wanted to point that out. It's like it's the sign of the times. It's not inherent in the political ideology. As far as the parallel institutions, sounds good. I've been hearing this for a long time, but no parallel institutions, societies ever get manifested into anything real that can challenge, and that's the problem. That's why I think we have to. When I speak of the government too, let me involve also the corporate oligarchy. When I say government, it's all of them together, right? It's the politicians and it's the billionaire class, all same team, or all the same government, in my personal opinion. So when we look at that, I think we need to challenge that head on, because you will never be allowed to have a parallel society or institution that truly challenges the system. Power just does not give up power, right? Power fights for power with scratching and clawing, as much as they can to hold on to it, right? Power just never gives itself away. And it'd be the same with this, because I've heard about parallel institutions, societies, uh, like I said, for the last 20 years, at least that I've been aware of it. And these things really never manifest into anything. So I think it has to go head on. I think kind of you need to go into the abyss to deal with this monster. And there is no parallel institutions or anything else.
Yeah, can I address this, because this might be the future of the right or whatever, which I think was part of what I wanted to get into.
Right.
So the thing about it is, I don't view like you said, the morality of the oligarchy, the morality of capitalism and the oligarchs is, if I'm making a profit, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? That's the morality. Well, I think that can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, that can promote vice and, degeneracy and this, that, the other. On the other hand, that also can say, well, hey, you're still making a profit and you hold all the power. Shut the fuck up and leave me alone, right? Like, I think that's something that you can say to somebody who's making millions or billions of dollars off of your labor. And one of the things that you said that was interesting was parallel structures that would challenge the oligarchy or oligopoly. I don't think you have to in a liberal system. And what I think you could do, so for instance, like some of the technologies that I'm seeing come online right now are absolutely fucking fascinating to me. They're amazing. So social media is in its infancy. It's only really been around for the past 20 years. And Discord in particular is one of the most interesting digital infrastructure, parallel community kind of bullshit. Because realistically, like, I have IRL friends. I just hung out with them tonight. It was awesome. Seriously, it was great to touch grass and be a real human being. But just because of the nature of society at this point, between COVID, this, that, the other, it's actually easier to engage in digital communities. And so what I'm kind of poking at is that I think you could hybridize this reality, not in a toxic way, in which people wake up, they're curled up like shrimp, and they're staring at their phones, and they're making themselves angry by being cavemen fighting online with people they'll never meet in real life. I think you could create real communities where people engage with each other, care about each other's well-beings, talk out each other's trauma, this, that, the other. And then also, kind of what I'm trying to do anyways, is try to hybridize that with real life, getting people engaged, doing community service, taking care of your family, encouraging self-improvement, like all that kind of stuff. And this is where it wouldn't be a challenge to liberalism or the oligopoly or whatever. I'm still going to go to fucking, my grocery store and buy food. I'm still going to have a smartphone. I'm still going to do this, that, the other. But then what I can do is I can basically build a community that, frankly, I think the black pilling of Americans in our modern society is because of the collapse of the church, the collapse of communal societies, the collapse of what feels like fraternal bonds with our fellow countrymen, because the definitions of what it is to be American have completely changed within the past few years. And really, that's all I had to say. I was just trying to pad it out because CT's camera went off.
Yeah, no worries. I don't know if he's still there.
No, I'm
Oh,
here.
he's there.
I was just lagging, so I shut it off every now and then to see if it stops lagging.
So my goal is not to challenge.
Here's the problem, though. So you bring up Discord and all of that. Now, if I started the Cultured Thug channel 2013, and all of my videos, like I do drunken rants where I get, sometimes I say the bad words, and okay, I get why those would get taken down. But I made a special channel for that back in the day, because I figured that I'll drink a little whiskey and say something spicy, and could get banned. But all the Cultured Thug content was literally me taking books you can get from a library and kind of doing a Spark Notes video version of these books that you can get on Amazon. You can check out at your local library and all that. So there was no TOS violations in these things. I'm just reading you books you can read yourself that just most people never heard of. So I tried to give that to them at least. Like, hey, maybe you never heard of this guy or this philosophy or this moment in history. So here's a book on it, right? And try to break down the book. Unfortunately, like I can't even count how many times I've been banned. Like literally past the hundreds, right? Since only 2013. I've been making videos since 2006 under a different name at the time, Quest, and same thing, banned all the time. But
paused, and I was like, "Oh, his internet's out." Okay, sweet. And then like it was me. Fuck.
No worries, man. No worries. You were talking about how you're coming to Christ now.
Yeah. That's where I was at.
Yeah.
So,
parallel societies, though. So the point I was trying to make. So since 2013. And since I haven't violated, there was no racial hatred or anything in my book breakdown videos or things like this. If I would have been allowed just to be platformed and to build that parallel society, I was allowed to grow a channel for, almost the last 10 years, right? If I was allowed to just grow that channel, then you know what? I'd probably be able to make a parallel structure or even a parallel community, right? That could manifest into something. But we're not given that. Like you talk about Discord. Discord bans people all the time, right? All the time for crazy and little things, right? And I don't even go on there about like once a month to watch movies with people. And I still get banned just for being associated with people that get banned. So it's they have the control of what the point is, though. We have to challenge them because they have the control to all of this. They can shut us down anytime they want. So we can't rely on them. That's why we have to challenge them, because they hold all the power as far as that goes. They won't allow us to build a parallel society. If you ever get on their radar and they don't like what you're saying, they target you, they erase you, they digitally wipe you from the internet, and you have to go to these bit shoots and these other places where hardly anyone's at and try to survive there. And so they don't give us the opportunity to build these parallel societies.
But can I address that? Because for instance, I don't think maybe it's because I'm trying to build like just normal, maybe normal is offensive. I'm just trying to build the communitarianism in the community that we had maybe 30 years ago, maybe 50 years ago, because the church was stronger, because people were more engaged with their communities, because they weren't as engaged in smartphones and digital media. All I'm trying to do is use digital media in order to hybridize what we had maybe 40, 50 years ago. That way, if somebody feels alone and isolated and they're only engaged in digital spaces, they can still have a digital community that they can lean back on. But then also encourage them to go touch grass and see people who are around them and actually talk to their neighbors and, take their fitness and their food consumption and their vice habits seriously. Encourage that kind of like positive community. So for me, I'm not trying to dismiss the travails of the dissident right, but the fears from a normie perspective or a left-wing perspective is that what's going to happen is that these ideas are going to be popularized, that they're particularly going to be popularized with young men, that even if it's not overtly encouraging ethnic division in the kind of like introductory or public facing side of it, that once you get into it, it will encourage those kinds of divisions and those kind of, noticing, so to speak, that kind of stuff. And then as a result, it will be a growing movement of young, alienated, angry men who believe that the best way to deal with the world is to advocate for ethnic authoritarianism, as we identified it earlier. And also, if they are frustrated in those efforts, to lash out against the public. I think that's the fear from a normie or left-wing or liberal perspective, is that's what will occur. And by the way, like, for instance, there's, we've had a good conversation, but there's some things that you've said in the past that I got frustrated with. Like a conversation with Keith Woods, where it was, if I remember correctly, the conversation was basically like, hey, China actually seems to have a relatively politically corporative model. They do flexible authoritarianism. In some ways, they are a better representative of the third position than anything that currently exists. Maybe third positionists should adopt the rhetoric and the flourishes of leftists in order to achieve a third position society through the veneer of leftist advocacy. And the reason why that frustrates the shit out of me is not because I don't think that it aligns with your worldview, but because it's like, fuck the CCP. Like, fuck them in their stupid asses. And it's, you know, like, so for instance, like, a guy lost his bicycle and he went to social media and he bitched about how the cops didn't do anything and how they were a bunch of assholes sitting around on their dicks all day and they didn't do this, that, the other. The cops, rather than going out and looking for the thief, they locked him to a fucking chair and they made him apologize to law enforcement and they video recorded it. And it's like, that's not the kind of society that I want to fucking live in. And so that's where, for me, a lot of this shit can feel good, but what's the real implications and the real impacts when it comes to like real world politics? I'll leave it there.
Yeah, well, once again, third position would have to have American characteristic, and there's some things that are just too Americana, even in this consumer culture, like gun rights and things like that. There's just some things that's always going to be a part of the fabric of Americans, right? No matter how diverse we are. So I would say when you're comparing it to China, it obviously wouldn't be the same thing. I think more of our conversation was about how there is apparatuses in China that I wish we had in America that I think is functional. There is they do step in and say, you know, kids are playing too many video games, so you're only allowed 4 hours a week now, right? And they even set up boot camps for parents to send their kids to if they're too much into video gaming. They censor movies for a lot of the.
Did you see all the leftists shit their pants on Twitter that week?
Yeah.
We're like, listen,
Yeah.
I was down for the Marxist-Leninist revolution, but then they fucked with my video games. Fuck
They
you,
took my
China.
video games. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's there's a whole other cognitive dissonance with the left and communism. Like I
Right.
think 95% of the left are not socialists, like not real socialists. So they're just more liberal identity politics types. But as far as China, yeah, I agree. They're competitor of us, right? So it's not like, oh, you know, China's base. No, they're an enemy, a competitor of us, right? But we could learn from them and use some of what they use. Like the state has power over their billionaires. I think we should have that too. Yeah, I think we should have that too. The state has oversight over the market. I think we should have that too, right? It's simple things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, so what I was going to say is, I understand we have a bunch of oligopolistic, nepotistic fucks in the United States, okay? Not pretending we don't. But I think one of the stories that came out within the past 5 years was that like their version of either like their Tesla guy or their Jeffrey Bezos or whatever disappeared for like 2 years. Now, a lot of poor people might say, based. You know, that guy disappeared for 2 years. He was in a political re-education camp. You know, they were breaking his thumbs. They were saying, hey, you know, we caught you doing tax fraud. We want you to do this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. But basically, this guy disappeared for 2 years, and then he just reappeared with no explanation. Now, maybe this is like a cultural thing. Maybe he was caught with like tax fraud, and they broke his thumbs. They got him to admit where his bank accounts were. They got the tax revenue, and they're like, hey, you know, we are an honor-based culture, so we'll just let you not say anything about us breaking your thumbs, and, you know, you can go on about your merry since you gave us the money, this, that, the other. Maybe that's what happened. Also, what could have as equally have happened because of the secrecy and the non-transparency of that government is that person could have just pissed off the wrong high-level Communist Party member and then ended up someplace and gotten his thumbs broken. So that's where, for me, again, like, if it's all a bunch of, you know, philosopher kings who rule the land, then it's always going to be fucking sunshine and fucking rainbows, right? But if it ends up being a dick, then you're going to suffer. And I understand that you already spoke to that, where you're saying like, hey, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. At least you know who to hold accountable. But that's where, again, like just comparing it historically, I know you're not saying it's necessary to be imperialistic when it comes to third positionism, but I'm thinking of what would be politically necessary to energize enough young people to advocate for this out loud and actually get it implemented. And it doesn't feel feasible in my lifetime. And then two, I don't know how that kind of like mob psychosis of we're gonna be the best men ever, we're gonna kick ass and take names, we're gonna control the government, we're gonna put those rich oligarchical fucks in their place, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna take care of our people, we're gonna build a healthy community. Like, I don't know how that kind of enthusiastic energy doesn't have some negative externalities.
I'm sure it always does to some extent. I think we're living in the perfect times for it, though. That's the thing. You don't think you'll see this in our lifetime? I think we're going to see radical change in our lifetime, especially with our
Oh,
government.
I'm afraid you're right.
Yeah, but so this is the problem though. This is why I advocate like we have to get politically serious, even if like say you and I disagree on some things. But if you're like, well, I'm gonna go put my message out there and I'm gonna go run and go to the people and do this, and I'm like, I'm gonna go do the same thing with my own thing. And even though we disagree, we're both trying to take action against the system. We're both trying to materialize it, take it from online to offline. And even though we disagree, we're at least both unified in our fight against the system. That's good. I wish everyone on the dissident right would get more serious like that and get more realistic about that, because I do think we are headed towards some crazy times and some changes in this system. And I'm afraid that the people that are going to take over, the one pandering and all that, we're really going to go into a liberal tyranny. I is my fear. Or like we're heading in towards something like that, where you could speak about dictators and things like this, but we will be ruled by, even if we think we replace these dictators, we're going to be ruled by this dominating system that has access to us, through our phones, maybe eventually chips. Who knows how far that it goes, but has access to every single citizen and has the ability now, forced to get a vax. Next thing comes around, and then we do the vax game again and force people to, like, they have so much control over us now. It's going to happen in our lifetime. That's why I'm also white pilled. And I think populism is going to have a real pushback in our lifetime too. I hope that it's the right people. Like you said, we go back to the good dictator and the bad dictator. I just hope we have the right people at the front of it. I'm afraid it's going to be like another Trump or something like that. That a lot of people, like you
I
said,
wanted
like,
to
how can
ask
we
you
get
about that.
energy? Yeah, how
Yeah.
can we get energy? Is people hate this system. It's built off of hate for this system that you can tap into this energy. And I'm just afraid that it's going to be another Trump and they're going to have more money, louder voice, more access, and they will usurp it again, just like they did in 2016. That's my fear. So that's why I think we have to be more active, put our ideas out there, put ourselves out there, and try, win, lose, or draw. Just try to get that, because if people really hear true third position populism, maybe they won't fall for the fake stuff. Maybe let's say, oh yeah, I like this guy's energy, he's funny, but I could see how he's acting, what he's doing, he's not really real. Like they won't fall for a Trump again. Like we want a Huey P. Long, right? We don't want a Trump. And so it's hoping we can get at the forefront of that voice, and hopefully we can influence, even direct if possible, the new populist pushback. It should be all of our intention, because one way or another, we're heading towards a tyrannical system. It's just getting bigger and stronger and more oppressive, and we're just all watching it like happen right in front of us. Every step, like 20 years ago. Imagine if you told an American 20 years ago, before 9/11, what America would look like today with its restrictions and its surveillance and all of this. They say, "Oh, you conspiracy theories, you're nuts. That'd never be America." But we accept it as normal now. So think about the next 10 years, especially as the metaverse starts expanding and we literally become, plugged into the matrix created for us.
Oh,
It's
this is where I want to present an alternative, though. So Dale Gribble was right. I get it. This, that, the other. But the the same thing about like a liberal hegemony, because I might, you were talking about people who were non-institutionalist or anti-institutionalist. I'm not necessarily anti-institutionalist. I'm anti the nihilism and hedonism and collapse of people. So I think the fault of liberalism is not in being a hegemonic structure through where multiple people of different faiths and perspectives and ideologies can survive. I think that's what it's strong at. What I do think that it's awful at is providing people with purpose or meaning. And as a result, because, capitalism, our morality is profit, basically nihilism and hedonism are great profit structures, you know? Don't believe in shit? Well, I guess I'll fucking eat Doritos out of my fucking belly, jerk off, and fall asleep. Like, that truck looks cool. I'm already in debt, but they said they would get it to me at 12% interest. That's a way better rate than the person who's offering it for me for 18. I'll buy that new fucking truck. And then what's happening is basically what's happening is I think we've been bled dry. I think the vampiric oligarchical fucks, you can't bleed a stone. When people can't buy houses, when they can't provide for their families, when they feel like they can't find quality partners, when they feel like they can't raise a family, that is when the system is going to experience instability, and you're going to have basically rocket fuel for extreme beliefs. And I know we've been having a polite conversation, but I view third positionism as an extreme belief, and I also view leftism, like the authoritarian leftism or even anarchic leftism, as extreme beliefs. My problem is I don't think anybody's coming to fucking save us. I don't think we're going to have a Huey P. Long. I think the system, you check out all the banana republics in Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. They are really good at putting puppets on the wall and saying, hey, we're going to help you. We're going to solve all your problems. Just vote for this guy. Vote harder next time. This is the most important election of your life. Vote for this guy. This guy is great, and this person is evil, and if you don't vote for this person, then everything's going to suck, and if you vote for this person, everything's going to be awesome. And basically they do that like every 4 years, right? Sometimes even every 2 fucking years. Mm-hmm. Nobody's coming to save us. So the boomers aren't going to save us. Gen X, God bless them, they're not going to fucking save us. So it's up to us. It's up to the millennials. And as terrifying as that fucking is, because we're all a bunch of adolescents, we got to figure it out. And so for me, advocating for third positionism is not my bag. Advocating for authoritarian or anarchic leftism is not my bag. What it is basically Burkean conservatism. What works about our society, take that, perpetuate that into the future. What doesn't work about our society, either relax it so other people can live decent lives, or reinforce it so it makes people's lives better. And I know that's like... you were saying that you don't see a lot of parallel societies being generated, any that challenge the power structure, basically get destroyed. I think you're right, but I don't think you challenge the power structure. You let the oligarchic, vampiric, adrenochrome sipping fucks do their thing over there, and then you have to do your own thing over here. And it is as simple as work your job, pay your taxes, find a partner, stay with your partner if you can, raise your children, pay attention to your children, make sure that they have a decent education, which I know is difficult in our current circumstance. And then basically, like, if you have an extra 5 to 10% of energy or money left in your fucking body after a 40 to 60 hour week, you give that to the rest of the community. And that's what I think we had. I'm not saying that we had it, but I think we had that probably 50 years ago, and we don't anymore because we're so demoralized and nihilistic and hedonistic. And again, the boomers are not going to fucking save us. So it's up to us.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's why, once again, I advocate challenging the system, because no one's going to come to save us. So yeah, we have to step up and be the people that we've been waiting for, right? And it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't want to do that. I'd want someone to come around and support that someone. It's just they're not coming. So it's kind of the same mentality. It's funny when you say like third position, you view it as an extreme thing. Like I have this firm belief that most Americans are fascists. They just don't know it yet. And so it's part of my responsibility and other people's responsibility to advocate and explain so they understand. So when you talk about, you agree with the method of use what works, discard what doesn't work. That's third position. That's exactly it. There is no, it's not like how communism was formed, where there is this stringent, central planning system formed. It was very organic and ebb and flow with the economics and everything else. That's why it differed state to state and party to party, is because it was very organic. And the mentality is you use what works and then you discard what doesn't. So it's kind of the same mentality. I think we're largely speaking about the same things. We're just using identifiers and terms that might think we're more separate than we really are. And this, like, hindsight 2020, if I can go back into the past and realize, like, you know, how how these words are so demonized and used as pejoratives and all of this, I would have figured out a different way to explain things without calling it fascism or even third position. I would have called it, American Chevrolet apple pie philosophy or something. But I would use something because it's the tenets that attract the people. It's the terms that turn them off.
Can
And so
I?
that's
Yeah.
where I've been stuck though, is there, right? It's like I get it. I get what people when they hear the Roman salutes and they think about Hitler, then Holocaust pops up, racism pops up in their head. So I get like I have to fight all these images in their head now when I'm trying to relate to them. So yeah, that is a problem. Like I said, hindsight 2020, I would have promoted it in a much different way and not even attach it to terms. Because once again, the tenets people agree with, the terms are what chase people away. And I think
But
that's
Mhm.
kind of even with this conversation a little bit.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's not for me. It's not the terms because I hope I'm smart enough to understand the concepts. There's 50% of it that I think is descriptively accurate, and as a matter of fact, it's kind of what most societies were for most of history. And what I mean by that is politically corporatist. You treat the political body as a single entity. If something is wrong with it, you try to address it and you try to create a healthy society. And the good rulers, who we remember as good rulers, were people who actually genuinely cared about the political corporative body and tried to advocate on its behalf. Okay? The problem is, I'm a history nerd and I think back on all of the rulers who did a good job that like you could just like without hesitation be like, yeah, that was a kick-ass ruler. They did a great job. They cared about their people. They looked after everybody's interests. They try to be fair, this, that, the other. I can think of half a dozen to a dozen names. You know what I'm saying? And all of the people who failed in that endeavor or had flaws, foibles, nepotism, all that kind of stuff, it's the rest of them. So we're literally talking about like a success rate of like 5% or some shit. But the thing about it is I buy into the bullshit. I buy into the liberal Republican balance of power thing. I think that when you talk about human nature, I think human beings at their core are nepotistic, self-interested people who want to buy into their id. And the only thing that remotely tempers that impulse is like religion, morality, or ethical education, almost borderline beaten into them since childhood. I think that's the only thing that tempers our impulses. And so what I think is like,
It's pretty bleak, but you're probably not wrong. It's pretty bleak, but you're probably not wrong.
I'm a bleak dude. So so when I look at the structures of a republic and I see we have, the Bill of Rights, and it's, these points that basically everyone is entitled to that gives them a certain level of individual autonomy, no matter how nefarious they are. Or if I see due process of law, or if I see, basically like, oh, balance of power, electoral politics is such bullshit. Like, you spend so much time and energy literally getting a candidate into the fucking thing, but then because they're one candidate amongst 500, they just get you a watered down bill 10 years after they said they were going to get it to you, right? So that's where the system is intentionally slow and slow to respond and all that kind of stuff. But I think when I read the Founding Fathers and they say, yeah, it's slow, but it's also more stable than a monarchy or a dictatorship or whatever, I'm okay with it. Maybe I'm privileged because I live a decent enough life that, my status quo is okay, but I'm still okay with that. And so I buy into the bullshit. So if you were to say, hey, Connor, third positionism is political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism up to and including a dictator with, cabinets that might check his power. I am okay with political corporatism as a philosophy. I fundamentally reject the flexible authoritarianism because of the historical examples that you say are products of the time, but I am worried are the products of human nature.
So when you're talking about republicanism, then are you advocating kind of the same democratic model of electing representatives and then changing the presidency every 4 to 8 years?
Kind of. If
Yeah.
I was the dictator for a day, what I would do is I would basically bar these people from trading stocks. I would bar them from accepting campaign donations. They would literally all have like an electoral slush fund to run their campaigns. And their immediate family would be barred from trading stocks, and they would be audited like every year or every 2 years. And if they were found to be taking money outside of their salary, which we would then double or triple to make sure that they were relatively free of corruption, that person would go to jail for fucking 30 years. If I was dictator for a day, I would maintain the exact system we have now, and then I would try to separate money and power as much as possible. And if if somebody was already rich, I would want them to put their assets into a blind trust and let that blind trust continue to take interest from the general economy, not from certain subsectors and all that kind of shit. And if a rich motherfucker said, hey, Connor, I'm a rich motherfucker, I want to be a senator, and you're barring me from doing that because I don't want to give up all my money, then I would say, fuck you. You're not a public servant. This is a public servant's position. If you want to serve, give up your shit. If you want to fucking rule or fucking rub elbows with rich fucks, then, pound sand. Just go be a rich fuck someplace else. That's my dictator for a day prescription.
Right. I mean, it's good, but obviously there's ways to work around all this too. Once they get out of office, they can get all the bribes that they've been waiting for. And I guess my issue with that is, and why I particularly don't like democracy itself, is mass voting, right? Universal suffrage. I think this is very bad. I think it's never been good, especially when you have a private media. All our minds are formed essentially by our public schools, our interactions with people, the entertainment we consume, and the news we consume. And most of this comes from like 7 companies, right? With all media and all entertainment and all this stuff. So we literally have 7 companies, 7 oligarchic companies that kind of define reality around you. And this is how we make our decisions. So I've never trusted the mass in voting because for very good reason. I've seen very uneducated people, 2 of them, their votes count more than a very educated person. So I always thought like, yeah, I like the restrictions you put on the politicians, but once again, there's always ways around this stuff. I think more of a restriction, if even to have a democratic model survive, should be on the voters. Like you should have to earn the right to vote, I think. And what that looks like, I don't know. Education test, years of service, I have no idea.
Oh,
but,
yeah. We actually, dictator for a day, we agree here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you should literally 2 years at the postal service or some shit, like 2 years in the Peace Corps, 2 years, some shit, right? Like show that you care about the body politic. But that's dictator for a day, not what I think is possible.
And remember, if it wasn't for dictators, Rome would have never survived. Often they'd have to create a dictator to unify the country, to fight the war, to save the empire, and then continue on too. So we do see, yes, it's true. So here's the thing with history. It's true. We see it's usually the same story. A great man comes about, changes the world or changes his society. Then his son or the next person comes up and is a complete failure or a lunatic or whatever, right? So we've seen this play out over and over and again in history. I get that. We see that same with democracy as well. But even worse, we don't even have great men anymore. It's all mediocre. It's like a stream of mediocre. Call me crazy. I'll take those dips all day long.
You're crazy.
I'll take that great man, and I'll take that great man,
You're
and
crazy.
then I'll take the freak after that. Over mediocre, like greed and corruption and stagnation. Like it's silly. We went to the moon in the 60s, and here we are. Can't even go back to the moon. Like we should be on Mars by now. This is ridiculous. Like we're so mediocre, and it's so greed built. It's like at least when you had these epochs of great men, you were changing the world. And we are so far from that now. We're stuck in mediocrity.
Yeah. So, this is actually you hit upon 2 points, and this is I kind of have a meme elbow, and then I have a serious point.
Right.
So the meme elbow is, I actually looked this guy up. There was a Roman, 458 after Christ, Cincinnatus, who was appointed dictator, and then he gets done, fighting the war or whatever, and he's like, "Fuck you guys, I'm out. I'm gonna go be a farmer."
Back to my farm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that's the kind of shit that I admire, similar to George Washington, where life is not only about power and wielding power in society. Like it's important. These are important things. But life is also about other things, and I admire the people who don't want power for power's sake. People who want power for power's sake are the most terrifying human beings on the planet. People who want power in order to implement the world in a better vision. Obviously, we have lots of definitions of better visions, but people who want that are less terrifying. The meme or the non-meme thing, though, because I just want to bring up Cincinnatus. The non-meme thing is struggle is available to you right now, like to young people. Serving in law enforcement, serving as a firefighter, serving as an EMT, serving as a nurse, serving in the military, even if you don't agree with American imperialism, death and disease and struggle and fraternity and all of these things are actually available to you right now. And you do have a talent, whether that's serving in the Peace Corps or serving in the Marine Corps. You have a talent that your society needs from you right now. And so my frustration is that, like, externalizing the greatness that you want out of the world to other people, when that need for greatness could be turned on yourself. Now, are you going to be fucking Buzz Aldrin or Abraham Lincoln or fucking, I don't know who the fuck, George Washington? Are you going to be one of these motherfuckers? Probably not. But can you be a competent EMT, a competent nurse, a competent doctor, a competent cop, a competent firefighter, a competent soldier, a competent worker, a competent tradesman? These are all personal greatnesses that do not need to be extrapolated onto the other. And I think the reason why I'm so bleak on the future is because I see a bunch of people who don't know how to achieve personal greatness, and they seem to be extrapolating it out onto waiting for a savior, or waiting for the correct Trump, or waiting for third position Jesus Christ. And I don't think you should spend your time like that. I don't think you should spend your time waiting for some motherfucker to come save you.
I 100% agree. Do you think, you said you're a fan of history, do you think Julius Caesar wanted power for power's sake?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, looking at his character,
he did some shit that was power for power's sake. He did some shit that was for the populace. He was a mixed bag. He's a mixed bag.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly. So that's why I agree with you. Anyone who wants to be leader, I'm already suspicious. Like, why do you want to be leader so bad, right?
This
but
motherfucker.
but we do see people like Caesar. But once again, maybe it's a different time where like that was your honor. It wasn't even about wealth. Like being like the top man was the most honorable thing. And so he wanted it for power, but he was also a populist. He also helped the plebs. They loved him, right? He did a lot of good for the common people of Rome, but he was also power hungry and ruthless at the same time. So I'm also very suspect of anyone that thinks they're going to be a great leader, because I don't think that's how it works. I think usually it's like the people driven by some kind of passion that are forced to do it are probably your best types. But we've also seen even people who I guess it depends where their ethics lie, because his ethics lied in honor. That's what mattered to him. So you would have to have the people love you too, to have some kind of honor. So it was also selfish for him to take care of the people, right? To have that honor and love bestowed upon them and support. But I'm saying those things can work out sometimes. Sometimes they intertwine, where that's kind of what I hoped Trump would have been. I knew he was a megalomaniac and a narcissist and all this, but I thought like maybe he's actually going to do a good job because that's going to help feed his ego. I didn't realize like he can tell himself any lie and believe anything in his own head, that he can completely fail and be miserable and betray his supporters, his core supporters, betray them and still think he's the greatest president of all time. I didn't think he was even that delusional, but that played out. But I'm saying even these people that are self-motivated, sometimes it's in their own interest too to take care of the people. So sometimes it's not even someone who's just completely compassionate about the people or the nation that do a good job. Sometimes it's even these sociopaths where just in instances the people's interest and their interests align with each other. I think Caesar is like a good example of that. I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, but this actually brings it up as a, because like I said, like I'm a, liberal, libertarian, constitutional, institutionalist, whatever. I'm part of the liberal hegemony that you despise, right? Because I'm an apologist for it. So the thing about it is, like, for me, seeing Trump come up with, like, I think executive orders have been fucking evil for a really long time. Seeing executive orders get challenged on like legal grounds and then get smacked down, I actually saw that as positive. When I see a president who's trying to wield power and influence like a monarch, but he can't, I see that as a positive. Now, in times of crisis, war, whatever, I think that's where we can, kind of like the dictators of Rome, we can say, hey, listen, these are our normal standards because of extenuating circumstances. We're going to extend you privileges. But the second that this crisis is over, you give those privileges back. I'm perfectly okay with all these checks on power. And what I'm hesitant of is giving people any power at all during relative non-crises, and then expecting them to give any of that power back and not serve that nepotistic shit. But I mean, this is gonna be where we disagree, though, because it's like, what you're looking for, a better society that achieves greater heights, and you're willing to take better risks. As somebody who has taken like personal risks or whatever, my caution is to young people is like, you want to find out what fucking danger and blood and fucking all that shit is like? It's on the table. Go get it, And you'll find out that the moments of triumph, while great, are always coupled with the moments of defeat that are terrible. And so if you want to pay, you can pay to play, but you can still return to a relative safe haven, which is the Republic of the United States of America. Whereas if you're looking for this greatness and this defeat within your nation, you're taking your fucking country and you're betting it in that game of risk. And I think a republic will be better long term to safeguard the interests of the country than a dictatorship.
I think both can exist in the same. I think you can have a parliament structure and a dictator all in the same. I don't think they're exclusive to one another. Once again, I guess our biggest disconnect was specifically with the model of politics is your support of liberalism. My angst towards it is the mass elections, the private controlled media. The influence is just too dominant on the people's minds, and we will never get a true person that represents the people, because the game is so set up and so well with two teams, red team, blue team fighting each other, and then this country divided along these two stupid parties constantly voting against the other party. We're stuck in this rut until that system changes. And that's why I think it's more advantageous to challenge that system with whatever and to take it on. Because if we allow this to play out like it's been, we're going to be stuck on this hamster wheel over and over and over again with no change, because we can't influence the system. We don't matter to the system anymore, right? They really don't need us. And they've been doing a good job of kind of highlighting that too, especially over the last decade, and especially with automation and all these things coming. So it's just, it hasn't worked. It's not been working. We've only been getting worse. We had the potential to be the world power. And here we are now fighting over bathrooms with people. It's like, this is where our system has brought us. So it's failed for too long. I'm down for something new. I'm down to, mix it up a little bit and let's get into something new. And I just think third position is probably the better solution than the others I've heard. That's kind of where I'm at. But this system needs to change. We can't continue this. It's my whole life. I've seen it, and I've seen where we've ended up. Like I said, we can't even agree on what the fuck a man and a female is anymore. Our system is built on critique. We tear away at the fabric till nothing exists. And here we are fighting about everything. So that's why collectivism, to me, I get it. It's a little oppressive. People don't like it, a little too authoritarian, but it's you were a police officer. You were in the military. You see the validity in that, because it couldn't work under a democratic system. It had to be authoritarian to have people unified, right, for a common cause and to achieve that. I say we apply that to politics, that same kind of mentality. I don't think it'll be such a bad thing. And I think people will be freer than they are today in this liberal democracy, actually. So that's why I think a misconception of third position is we're draconian or something. I think people will have more individual freedom under third position than we actually have today. So as the time runs out, I just wanted to finish with that. It's not as oppressive as people think they are. If people looked into the history, you'll see even Hitler and Mussolini had plenty of their enemies debating them, and they didn't lock up and kill all of them. So it's just all can exist under the same tent. What's up, birthday boy?
Yeah, just wanted to pop on real quick. I know the broadcast is winding down, and just have a quick drink with you, and just say what's up. That's all, man. Appreciate you coming on tonight. Sorry I couldn't be here, but you know how it is with family obligations. So,
yes. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care of yourself.
Hey, so obviously, did he leave?
Oh no.
No. What was that?
Okay,
CT, are you good?
Oh.
Yeah.
I think you accidentally removed yourself, maybe, or I didn't click. Maybe a button got hit or something like that. But
He's
yes.
like, okay, happy birthday, see ya.
Yeah.
So it felt like a natural close. Do you guys?
Nah,
CT sounded like a.
I'm good. I just want to clarify, yeah. Actually, could I just get 2 minutes? It's not going to be. Contentious.
Do your thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what I would say is, I am a liberal apologist. I am somebody who apologizes for the hegemony and mixed economy capitalism, because I think a lot of the things that actually assail us today are crises of meaning related to religion and spiritual definition and all that kind of stuff. And I think that under the liberal framework, a lot of the meaning that we previously relied on from like religion and community and all that kind of stuff, it's just been absolutely destroyed. It's been destroyed because liberalism doesn't have a morality besides the basic framework of like individual rights and individual freedoms. So that kind of leads you like freedom is both the freedom to do good and the freedom to do evil. It is freedom of both things. So what I would say is, it's up to us, if we've been given freedom and we've done evil and we know that it's bad for us long term, it's up to us to turn around and assert some responsibility and do good. I don't want, if CT, no matter how enlightened of a philosopher king he was, I don't want him as my philosopher king. I would prefer to make some level of decisions on my own. And honestly, like, even if he was the perfect dictator, I think that some asshole would kill him, or he would have like really good relationship with his like nephew, and his nephew is actually a dick, but he just likes him anyways. And then his nephew seizes power and fucks up the country. So that would be my concern with third position as a whole, with like the dictatorial system. And what I would invite, if you're on the distant right or whatever, consider these thoughts, but also realize that dissident right, Jesus Christ is not coming to save you, and it's probably up to you to save yourself. So I would leave it with that. So thank you. And CT, thanks for doing this, by the way. I know that like, you've probably had your fair share of debates where like people are like, hey, come debate me, bro. And then like, you're a piece of shit. And like, that's the whole conversation. So I do appreciate you coming out and engaging. Thank you.
No, me too. Great conversation. Highly enjoyed it. Enjoyed the first time we spoke too. Yeah. You're a well thought out dude. You're actually curious and interested and looking for solutions. And we all need to be like that. So yeah, whatever we agree and disagree is fine. I just like the fact that you're good faith. You've always been respectful, and you're actually a curious and intelligent dude that actually cares about our country. All too few and far in between, from my experiences, at least.
Yeah. And so with that, we've just got, I've got a couple of questions that I gathered throughout the time. There was a lot of discussion, and like, I really just want to say you guys did such a great job. I don't think I've ever watched a debate where both sides were so cordial, and you're absolutely right. So I'll just start with counterpoints. So you mentioned earlier about communitarianism, and just quick to clarify, you said that would be sort of your ideal society. I don't want you to elaborate too much, but is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And so you said that it was kind of a balance between individualism and collectivism, but I did a quick Google of it, and it seemed to reject the individualism and the way the individualism aspect of that. And the way I wanted to draw it back was, how do you distinguish communitarianism with communism?
Yeah, so communism is thought of as like a moneyless, stateless, classless hodgepodge of fucking people just kind of floating in the ether in a utopian society in which there's no wants or needs because they've all been met through, basically communal ownership of the means of production, this, that, the other. For me, communitarianism. So basically, even if I use the classical definition incorrectly, I think that the individual cannot be the only way through which we analyze society. Because what happens is the community or the collective is made up of the individual. So if you have weak or shitty individuals, eventually that's going to affect the collective. And then you can't view it solely through the lens of collectivism, because then you negate the individual and you can basically say, hey, you're part of the collective, just do whatever we say. And then you basically destroy the individual as a part of that thing. It has to be a balancing of rights and interests. And as I kind of pointed out in the conversation, we already do this to a certain degree. America is an individualist nation in principle, but we do a bunch of communitarian and collective action. And it's always a balance between the two, and I'll stop repeating myself.
Great. And then I had one for CT. So you mentioned very early that there's a lot of different brands of third positionism. So can you differentiate what makes like the New Frontier movement, or what your team is doing, that differentiates it from the other branches? Is it purely geographical, or is it ideological, or can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, definitely both. Like I said, it has to take on the characteristics of the country. So probably you and Pedro would like this. Brother Augustine, right? That was his name. He was a big fan of the Iron Guard because they were a theocratic third position, right? They were very Orthodox Christian, and that very much drove them. While places like Germany and Italy were very pragmatic towards religion, used it for politics and propaganda when they could, and suppressed it when they needed to, etc. Right? So it's like a different approach from the country you're in. Being that we're born into this multiracial country, I look at us more as an empire model. I look at us like Rome more than like a actual nation. It's like we are an empire. We have vast land resources, and we have many different peoples living in this mass land that's called America, right? So I look at us dealing with that. So we had to create a platform that dealt with the reality of the diversity of the difference of Americans, and try to find common bonds amongst these different peoples who are at each other's throats right now over race, religion, sex, and everything else, right? And try to find common things that would bring these people together. So it had to be very American and organic in the same sense, to where it couldn't be too radical, but it couldn't be too complacent either. We had to try to draw that fine line. That's what we call populism. We think that's like the Trojan horse to get in these ideas is through what's called populism, because it's still very vague. People like, what does populism even really mean, right? It's something anyone can use for numerous things. So when you look at our platform, you'll see, as the education system we created and everything else, we specifically removed identity politics from everything, because we have the belief most Americans are sick of it already. They just want food on the table. They want to be respected for the job they're doing, and they want to feel like they're working for a system that appreciates them. And we think if we could have put that out in a platform to people and express, don't give a damn about your race, about your sex, about your religion, or anything else. Are you an upstanding citizen? Are you willing to work and sweat for your nation? Then you'll get rewards from your nation as well for doing that. And it's trying to find that common ground. So when you look at our platform, it's nothing like any other platform written, just like every other platform from Italy to Germany to Brazil. We're all similar in a sense with their nationalism and their corporative economic system, but very different in the expression of it. And that's what ours is. It's very Americana. We had to consider the illegal immigrants in the country. We had to consider the different populations of this country and try to work it all out. Like, how can we draw a true, fair, and balanced version of this, to where we can persecute the bad people, but at the same time, we can put the good people on a pedestal. And so when you look at our platform, you'll see it is very unique in that sense because it's American, and this is a very unique country. This is like rare in history to have such a mixed country, to be at the forefront of power right now, but at the same time eating itself alive. So yeah, it's very Americana. You cannot, like, gun rights is a big thing, right? That's a big thing. Like, not only do we encourage everyone to have a gun, we want people to take classes on gun education. This is something you will see in no other platform anywhere, because this is specifically American. And like, so the fear is the fascists take your guns away. No, we want every house with a gun. You know, every house should have a gun. You should be able to protect your house and have a gun. So
you
we
would give
actually
us standard
that.
like an allowance for 6 hour, up to 3 guns from 6 hours.
Yeah.
What you're
Yeah.
saying?
Universal basic guns.
Here's what's different. Here's what might be liberal. Like, I think you should have to take a test, though. I think you should get schooled on like, it's nuts to me. You don't have to take a test to own a gun, but you have to take a test to drive a car and everything else. It's like, you should know how to break down a gun, to load a gun. You should know how dangerous it is. You should know not to point it to people, even if it's unloaded or not. All of this stuff. Yeah. You should go through an education course before your first gun purchase, right? And of course, mental welfare background check as well. Like, you should have a check and balance to it, right? But everyone should have access to it. Everyone who's competent, at least, should have access to it. So I would say that's, like, if I had to pick out one thing that's very different than every other third position thing, it was that specifically, because that's so American. And that's something, you know, we'd never want to take away from Americans. That's what makes us so unique too. And troublesome too, right? We have a lot of gun violence too. We get it. But at the same time, this is a part of our ethos you'll never be able to take away. I hope you won't be able to take away. I fear sometimes people will allow that, but hopefully that's something Americans will still fight for. And I would say, like, to point out one thing in our platform, that's one that's very Americana that we're very much behind, is simply gun ownership. But the whole platform is from the mentality of Americans looking for unity in this diverse country where we're at each other's throats over everything and trying to find, like, I get it. We all don't like each other. We don't need to. If we can respect each other and work together to achieve the better for all our communities, we should at least be able to do that. We should. So,
yeah. All right. I just had one final question for both of you. So there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of exchange. It's been really great. But try to synthesize it to its most simplest form. Describe your ideal political or societal ideology in 5 words or less.
I need a second.
To expand the universe and fuck the galaxy up his ass.
There we go.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
All right.
So it's not gonna be 5 words, but what we have plus people actually giving a shit about each other and giving a shit about the country and putting efforts towards both those ends.
Perfect.
Man.
Oh, that's it for me.
Okay, cool. I was actually thinking about that. If I had to answer that question, I'd say return to biblical world view. Easy. But I had 3 questions as well. They're pretty simple. I don't think these will be hard. To both of you, would you consider Protestant churches a parallel critical structure that has the ability to challenge the established institutions?
No.
No? Okay.
They're conformists, especially Protestants. I mean, come on, bring up a more based version of Christianity if you're going to bring up Christians.
Right.
I don't. Yeah, so I also agree. I don't think it can challenge the status quo, but if you're talking about it as a necessary social institution to build community and communal virtue and all that kind of stuff, if the church can't provide it, we have to find a new thing to provide it. Because basically what's happening is, you know, we can debate this another day, but in my view, Christianity is kind of dying in a lot of areas of America. If that's going to die, we have to replace the social function of religion at the very least, if not spiritual connection.
Gotcha. If I were to tell you guys that, have you ever heard of Red State Reformed by any chance? Either of you?
Not.
No.
Okay. So Red State Reform is an institution led by Dennis Arfate. Dennis Arfate is a regular church member at a church called Apologia Church, led by Jeff Durbin and James White. Do you guys recently know what happened with Roe v. Wade? Did you guys hear about that whole thing?
It's
You'd have
still
to
at the
break it down
Supreme
for me
Court,
because
right?
yeah, I thought it was under threat, but it wasn't done.
Yeah, it's not. I
Well,
thought it was still open. Yeah.
well, you're correct. It's currently still under threat. But the crazy thing is, this is a Protestant church that has direct influence over senators and House representatives, such as from Texas, Senator Bob Hall, and House Representative Brian Slatum. For Arizona, it's a huge list. House Representative Walt Blackman. The list can go on, but they're in direct contact with their lawyers, and they've only been a church for, I think that has to be alive for the past 20 years, and they are the ones who are actually directly threatening Roe v. Wade, and they are the ones who are pushing legislation in individual states in order to illegalize abortion. So if you
the amicus brief.
Yes, exactly, the amicus brief. So these people are Protestants, churches, where honestly, if I had to say, you don't have to really think hard about this. They already have all the money. If you look at the institutions and the structures for just 5 minutes online, they are effectively challenging the status quo. Would that pull you guys at all, hearing that information?
No.
No?
Yeah,
because
sorry, go ahead.
it's still it's still on the table, so it's not even a victory for them yet. You're jumping the gun. I don't think they'll have a victory, and I think Counterpoints is right, and I think Nietzsche was right, to be honest. Even back then, Christianity was dying, and even today, I get it. Pedro's a serious Christian, right? Chad and his brother Zen are very Christian, right? Yes, but most Christians are Christian in name only in this country. And
Totally
that's the
agree.
truest thing. It's the spiritualism is decaying in people in this on all fields, right? So I meet only on the internet do I like meet real Christians who really spiritually in tune with it, believe it, and love it and promote it, right? That's it. I love those kind of people. More power to you for having that faith and belief. More power to you. I meet so many fake Christians. So I think like there is a rot going on. You can blame science. You can blame hedonism. I don't know. There's probably numerous reasons why this is a devil's plan, right? This could be numerous reasons why all this is happening. But so many people are Christian only in name, in my experience. So I don't think you had that same energy Christians had 300-400 years ago where you would live and die for this message. Most Christians don't have that. So, and I think that's what gets you power. That's what gets you influence. And now you have Christian churches with transgender priests now, or marrying homosexuals, all these things. It shows there's a corruptness in this religion with the people now. So that's why I don't think you're going to have the influential power you would hope, because true Christians are a lot less than what's numerically said how many Christians we have in this country.
Yeah, but to taper off of that. So no, I don't think it challenges the status quo in the way that Cultured Thug would value. But I do think that it shows that parallel structures can have power. So for instance, if Protestant churches are offering a sense of community to a bunch of people who share values, if they're offering social services and that sense of community, if they're calling people to higher ideals to act in their lives, and even if they fail and they're Creaster Christians, right? Christmas and Easter Christians who only go to church twice a year, reminding them of the message of this higher moral virtue is better than just allowing stagnation and corruption to go completely unchecked. So is it going to completely revolutionize the world and we're going to be living in a Christian theocracy in 5 years and, you're going to be the dictator? No. But it is speaking to the fact that you do not have to destroy the liberal hegemonic power in order to have real impact on our world and in people's lives. And I think that's the thing is like we get on the internet, we want to impact the entire fucking world because we're a bunch of like history and political dorks. But the truth is that you will probably have much more success directing your impact towards those immediately around you than by trying to take over the whole world. It's ambitious and admirable, to try to spread your message as far as possible, but you also need to be realistic about your impact until you actually achieve real power or real wealth.
I understand. So, kind of counting my chickens before they hatch. If this all pushes through and I can show you that that church that was only 25 years old actually succeeds in pushing it in at least 15 states and gets everything they want accomplished, then I can come back and talk to you. That's perfectly fair. I'm a results man as well. We talked about diversity. I don't like diversity as well, specifically when they talk about race, because obviously, if you've seen me talk before, I just think it's made up. And I think a solution to getting rid of it would be adopting Christian ethics. What criticism or question would I have to deal with or answer in order for me to bring you both over? What's probably the big ticket items?
Ooh, I mean, there's so much.
Say that one more time.
Literalism.
Literalism.
Don't worry, CT. Formulate your thoughts. So yeah.
No, I'm gonna let you say it for me.
So literalism. I was raised Christian. I was raised in both the Protestant and the Catholic Church. It is very hard for me to believe in the literal resurrection of Jesus Christ. I can believe in the metaphorical and this, that, the other. I think there's symbolic and ritualistic and moral power in the messages of Christianity. And on top of that, I think it can get you to adopt some of the most socially coherent and positive messaging and morality available on planet Earth. I think that it does have some of the best morality available. That being said, when you tie it to divinity or tie it to Christian literalism, it's not, the Jews or the globalists or whatever who are making me doubt Christ. It's, science and, empiricism and objectivism and this, that, the other. It's the analysis of the modern world, and you and I can have a debate about that another time. But I would never want to debate you out of your faith, because I view your faith as a positive impact on the world. And by the way, I wish I had it. I wish I fucking had it. I wish I was a Christian literalist and had faith that way. But
what if I told you can be a Christian contextualist?
I'm perfectly fine with that. And by the way, even the anti-theists of our society, I don't think it's going to work. But I think the anti-theists of our society would benefit from studying Christian morality and ethics and how it applies to individual lives and family. So even if they didn't adopt it wholeheartedly, I still think they could benefit from that study.
Okay, perfect. And then CT?
Well, yes, to top onto what he said, obviously the science, kind of historical inaccuracies. So I guess my logic kind of takes me out of that. Same with Counterpoints. I wish I could have the faith. It'd be much easier life to have that kind of faith, but it just doesn't exist. And I agree with Nietzsche's criticisms of the moral ethics of Christianity, that man was a sin from his start, that he's always going to be a sin. And Nietzsche viewed this as this herd morality, right? This morality of the weak, of the meek, and kind of lambasting the strong. And I've kind of agreed with that critique. I've always looked at the moral ethics of Christianity as very docile, as very meager. The ethos from the Old Testament was always about strength, domination, and the here and now. And then Christianity was completely different. Everything was the hereafter, right? That's where everything came into play, the hereafter. So I agree with his criticisms on the morality of Christianity, and I more support a moral framework that kind of works around this achieving the overman. That's why I'm a third positionist too. I mean, it's like a societal, stretch of that.
So I know we got to keep moving, but that's almost like another debate that I wouldn't mind doing. Because
that'd be interesting chat.
Yeah, because basically, like, for me, every man is weak. You're weak when you're born. You're weak when you're on your way out. You will experience weakness, sickness, disease. You'll lose family members, this, that, the other. So that while Christian morality isn't perfect, and I think that there are arguments to be made that it does rob you of the here and now, as CT just said, I think that if you have it as a default mechanism, And then you can kind of channel strength. Like meek is supposed to be like strikos or something like that. It's supposed to be a Greek word for like disciplined and trained. I think that meek is wrong. You shouldn't be meek, but you should be disciplined and strong with your will, and you should be willing to accept the weakness of others and support them. But I'm not kidding at all. Literally, if you wanted to run this back in another month or so, Nietzschean power morality versus the ethics and morality of Christianity, even not as a Christian literalist, that's a fascinating conversation to me.
Well,
That's a
we
great
can
conversation.
we could pin it. We could pin it right now. I don't know, Chad. Would you be willing to come on with me and you, and not a versus? It sounds like more of a conversation. I feel like me and Chad, both of us, would be able to square some of your questions.
Sure.
Would
You mean
I would say
literalism?
I would say schedule 2. Schedule 1, where CT and I are the anti-literalists who are fucking, basically presenting to you why we're not Christian or don't believe that we're Christian. And then schedule a second one where me and CT talk about, like, is Nietzschean power philosophy better for society than Christian slave morality? And
I'm
I
down
think
for both.
Yeah, I think
I'm
those
down
are
for both. Yeah.
two both.
Yeah, I
great
don't know about the
conversations.
second one. I don't know if I'd be able to, because I don't know much about Nietzsche, but you're talking about between
I
you
got
two?
CT. I know. I
yeah.
know Christian morality enough. Like my Nietzsche's a little rough, but I think I know enough to at least carry the conversation.
I'm so down. I'm so down.
I'd
I
be
don't
down,
know. I'm not. I don't know Nietzsche, but I'm willing to put my head like to the gridiron to make that discussion happen. So yeah, and then last question. Specifically, actually, this one was for counterpoints. You want to make culture that has the ability to organically solve problems in our current date. What do you want to build around? Like, what is the center of that? What do you want to build around it? What's at the center? If I had that.
Listen, I know
Yeah.
I'm on a panel where Jordan Peterson is a communist cuck, but basically, I think there is a core, which is like the order and chaos thing, which I know offends a lot of leftists. But what I would say is, you wake up, the world is already disordered. It's already falling apart. Your body isn't as good as it used to be. This, that, the other. You got problems. The best thing you can do is take one immediately solvable problem, solve that problem, and then knock out as much shit as you can in the day, wake up the next day and hope the world is a slightly better place. That's like the core ethic. And there are plenty of people who don't believe that in action or word. They literally just let themselves wallow in increasing destitution and, degeneracy, where the world becomes a worse place through both either intentional action or inaction. I think that's the cornerstone of human action through which to extrapolate all other actions. And I could give you like 10 other things, but I think if you're an atheist, an anti-theist, a theist, a deist, it doesn't matter. If you wake up, you think the world's a little shitty, you make it a little bit better, you wake up tomorrow and you do the same shit, I think that's the cornerstone for that philosophy.
Awesome. Okay. And can I have you guys for 15 minutes to field some audience questions? Is that okay?
I'm done.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. So from Andrew Scott, prompt: culture is shared subset of answers to endless lists of questions. The question here: would each have a centerpiece of their culture, and how would that look? You kind of just answered that, Counterpoints.
I did.
I think.
I can just let CT go.
Exactly.
The center point of their culture, of American culture. I don't get what he's asking.
I think he's asking for that glue. This sounds similar to what Andrew says a lot of time. What is the glue?
What is the glue? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Mandatory gun classes. Shit, for America. That is very interesting. So religion is a strong cultural glue for sure. But we live in a multi-religion landscape here. Race, ethnicity is a strong cultural glue, but we live in a multiracial society here. So, like, what's going to be the cultural glue that brings us together outside of consumerism? It's going to have to be shared destiny. We have to understand we all have a shared destiny in this country. And I think that's going to be our cultural center point in this country, is to understand we have a shared destiny. And we should realize that and try to make the best destiny for us all. So I think that's the only way you have this very divided, racially, religiously, sexually, all this stuff country. Understand, we are all attached to each other, whether we like it or not. We sink or swim with the benefit of this country. So we should be swimming. So our shared destiny is, I think, our cultural center point.
Yeah, Pedro, if you don't mind, I'll do it real fast. So for,
go for it.
American glue, because you brought up the CT, you brought up all the problems with it. I think it's boiling down the Constitution to its basic bare components, which is freedom of speech and freedom of conscience, the right to self-defense, up into including your own government. That's a foundational principle from the Second Amendment. And then a limited government, not limited in a libertarian sense, but a government that has to follow its own rules as enshrined in the Republican rule set. I know that goes against third positionism, but if I was to articulate my liberal hegemonic 3 principles to perpetuate a civic nationalist nation going forward, those would be my three cornerstones.
Awesome. And the next question comes from David. Is it fair to say that third position is a vague term? A number of different ideologies encompass it. The only thing that binds them together is their stance against capitalism and communism.
Yes, it is. That's the problem with defining fascism. Every time I have to go on and define, like 1,000 things run through my mind because it's not a simplistic thing. Yes. That's why it's called a third position. It's against the first position, liberal capitalism. It's against the second position, Marxian socialism. The other thing I would add to that's universal with third position is the belief in a new man. Every third position party, from Spain to Brazil to Germany to Italy, all encompass this belief in a new man. It's intertwined with every third position universally, just like the collectivism of the economy and the nationalism of the people is also universal with third position. I would say those 3 things is what's universal in third position. Everything else is open to discussion.
Can I? Yeah, I want to give it a crack because, CT and Keith Woods are good teachers. Correct me. I would say it's political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism. And what I mean by that is the political corporatism treating the body as, or the politics, the nation as a body. So if there's a part of it that's injured, you heal it. If there's a part of it that's working well, you use that to reinforce a different portion. So political corporatism being the first core principle. The second core principle being flexible authoritarianism. You're not authoritarian for authoritarian's sake. You use the political establishment and the oligarchy or whatever. You use the things that are necessary to promote the health of the corporative body, and then you let go of the things that are not necessary to promote the corporative body. So you could technically have a continuous fascist nation over 100 years that's very authoritarian in its inception, then less authoritarian over time because it doesn't need to be, and then during a crisis become authoritarian again. And so that would be my definition.
Yeah, well, the political corporatism is essentially that's the same as nationalism to me, right? It explains that. When I mean nationalist, yeah, you factor in everything matters about the nation. Where it's hurting, you address it. Yeah, the authoritarianism. This is the interesting thing about it. Yeah, it's a very law and order. I guess that's another thing that's universal about third position is very law and order. But that's an interesting belief you have that I've stated before that people don't understand. Ideally, we would head towards a society where you would have less need of authoritarianism. If you can have this new man, this healthy society built, you would have a less need for that. So that's the beauty of third position. It's continually evolving. It's not set in stone. It's not Marxism. It's not capitalism. It's not like it has to be this or that. Like, it's constantly growing. So funny and weird as it sounds to people, you can envision a society where it becomes less authoritarian throughout the time as the society improves. Yeah, that's 100%
I can't wait for the libertarian fascist party. It's going to be fucking crazy.
They probably already exist. I've heard all kinds of, they're probably already out there somewhere.
All right, next question from Crucible Clips goes to both debaters. What's the single most effective thing as an average individual can do in the next year to affect the political change they want to see?
Run for office.
I'm done with electoralism. Dude, fuck electoralism.
I hear you.
Yeah, so basically affect political change. If you're talking about, dude, if you're talking about electoralism, like vote in your local elections so you can have your little impact on the things that affect your county and your state. When it comes to the federal level, do the lesser of two evils bullshit that we've all done. But I'm about done with the electoral system because, as we were talking about, you get shitty, watered down results a decade too late. So, if you actually want to have impact on the world around you, I would say take 10% of the energy that you use to yell at people on fucking Twitter and think about how you have a talent that can actually serve your community, and then take that talent, wealth, or influence and actually have it serve your community instead of this godforsaken fucking hellscape that is Twitch politics or Twitter politics. I love this space. I love participating in it, but it sucks the energy that could be directed in positive directions out of young people, and I think that's the siren song of this space.
Gotcha. All right, and next question comes from Andrew Stott. Along similar lines, where do each see society drawing meaning from in their systems? Anything outside? So outside of religion this time.
I'll go first. I'm an Abrahamic perennialist, meaning that perennialism is a religious belief that basically says that all the world's religions, if they have something true to say about God that remains true over time in scientific skepticism, that thing is true. And all of the world's religions are an attempt to understand the transcendental, spiritual, whatever. I'm not a raw materialist. And so I'm kind of like an agnostic deist, but perennialism is the religious philosophy that I believe will survive the anti-theist skepticism of the modern age. So basically, I would just Google perennialism. And then what will draw meaning? I think we have to start with that like core foundational principle. Do you want the world to be a better place than it was yesterday? And are you willing to expend some level of effort in order to do that? And people who share that trait in common can come together regardless of whether or not they're religiously affiliated, spiritually affiliated, politically affiliated, and actually try to use the tools that we've been given as a society to make the world a better place. That's where I want to start, and that's where I think we're going.
Gotcha.
I'd say Faustianism. It's a Oswald Spengler concept of this, especially in Western society, this never-ending urge to advance, to grow, to learn, to succeed, to explore, to dominate, and to continue on. And this is, I think, at the core of all Western societies. And I think this is what our institutions should represent, is our never-ending urge to expand, to know more, to get better. And I think every institution should be run by that spirit by itself. People read Decline of the West, Oswald Spengler, he goes into the Faustian concept of the Western people, and you get a better understanding on it. But I think it's a driving force that's been left untapped for too long.
Awesome. Well, this is the last one, and I'm actually going to use this last question, CT, for you to give yourself a chance to shout yourself out on your channel. I'm going to close it. I'm going to shut it down here. I think it's been, we kept you guys long enough. We thank you so much for coming on to the Crucible. So go for it.
Okay, recommended reading list. I've done a couple videos on this. If you look on my Odyssey, A Cultured Thug, I go through my whole book collection. You'll get it's over an hour long, but you'll get a lot of books to go from. I have another video called Books for Fascists, where I recommend what books people trying to learn about third position. I even got books on the JQ, recommend for people that are interested about why this question exists as well. I would say if you're going to read one book to try to understand third position, the philosophy and the politics of it, it's The Origins and Doctrine of Fascism by Giovanni Gentile. That's your one go-to-all book. It's only 100 pages long, but it does a great job of breaking down the philosophy and the politics at the same time. So that's your first one you should go to, but I have a couple videos with whole book list and recommendations. H.R. Morgan's Codex Fascismo, volumes 4, 5, and 6 is another great one that shows you all the different variations of third position from South America to Europe and even in America with some parties at the time. So definitely two books worth checking out. You can find me, New Frontier, on YouTube, stream there 2 times a week. And then on Odyssey or BitChute under Cultured Thug, channels are there. No new videos. Cultured Thug videos are done, but you'll find a whole collection of book breakdown videos and other things and interviews and stuff like that. That'll hopefully help at least educate people in third position. I don't mind if people are anti third position. I just want you to know what you hate, at least. I'm so sick of arguing with people that have no idea what it is, and they just call you names. Like, go and don't like it, but at least know what you don't like first. Like, I try to at least know what I don't like before I don't like it. So I would advise people to do that. Even if you're not into it, at least know what it is so you can argue against it better, maybe. And then also, you can find me doing interviews and panels on the Killing Fields on YouTube. Should be interesting. We should have Thomas Rousseau on Wednesday to interview him from Patriot Front. They just had a massive dox, whole kinds of problems. So hopefully it'll be a very interesting conversation. Outside of that, thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Chad Hominin, and thank you, BPF, and thank you, Counterpoints, for this whole conversation. It was a great conversation. I look forward to our future ones.
We appreciate you too, sir. And hey, Counterpoints, go for it.
Yeah,
Shout out your channel.
My name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. I don't just do political debates, and as a matter of fact, I'm slowing down a little bit. But I am active in like the Twitch and Twitter political sphere. So if that interests you, then go ahead and check it out. I'm also into Warhammer, and I am doing like a personal development series where I'm just kind of going over like the things that fucked me up existentially and spiritually, and me trying to build back into a better human being over time. And I'm hoping, you know, if there's disaffected or angry or fucked up kids, you know, and kids is everybody, like 15 to 30. And you don't feel like you have a tribe, and you feel like you're falling apart, and you feel like everything sucks, maybe some of my shitty experiences can help inform your experiences, so you don't have to learn the hard way. If you want to learn the hard way, you'll still learn, so that, you know, don't you know, still learn however you see fit. What I would also say is, you know, I am here to the dissident right to offer, you know, a little bit of a challenge to your preconceptions. I don't think CT externalizes the great man hopes. You know, I hope he's taking care of his life and doing his thing, and basically being as good of a person as he can. But if you're a young person and you just feel like fuck, like everything is falling apart, how do I become something greater? How do I become a part of something greater? Everything seems fucked up right now. Keep asking those questions, and if I have anything to offer you, then come ask those questions. So thank you for having me on, and no, it was awesome. And the spiritual questions that we were asking, why can't young Americans be Christian literalist, or why can't some young Americans be Christian literalist, and what is the correct philosophy of Western people going forward? A dominant a dominant philosophy or a slave morality? I think these are at the core of the degradation of our societies, and we have to answer these questions. So, love being here, love the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful, Chad. We freaking did it. We moderated a conversation that never went into some kind of stupidity that, you know, is just going to be a waste of everybody's time. I think this is very beneficial. I very much appreciate everybody coming on. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. We are trying to keep this kind of content for you guys going each and every day. We have people in the background asking us to come on, debate, interview, and, you know, share their thoughts and challenge what they think is the truth and destroy what they know is a lie. Thank you for watching. This is The Crucible.
Awesome. So, dope. Let me do full cam. I do have a couple of minutes. I can answer a few questions. I don't know how pissed off anybody. I don't know how pissed off people are going to be that I participate in that. But CT, if you were going to look for a nationalist, a national socialist who actually knows his shit and isn't just a screeching fucking racist weirdo, CT is it. Another person who is talented in this world is a gentleman named Keith Woods. And I'm not trying to say these things because I want to platform them. I'm saying these things because I want to appeal to their audiences. And I want to say third positionism, neo-nationalism, whatever you want to call it, isn't necessarily the path forward, and you don't have to destroy everything in order to make it good. So if you're new here, awesome. If you're not new here, awesome. Like, share, subscribe, give me money so I can do this as a full-time job eventually. I'm going to go into the chats, do @Counterpoints. You do not have to give me money for me to answer your question. So do @Counterpoints in Twitch chat and YouTube chat. I will answer your questions. When I am done, I will answer all the questions. When I am done, I am going to go pay attention to my family and go to bed. So let's go with Twitch first. Status Warrior @Counterpoints. Republics can be forced to the benevolent or malevolent. Dictatorships can be forced to the malevolent, but never back. Yes, precisely. You can force them back, but it's going to take a lot of blood in order to do so. And this is why I prefer, as cordial as I was in that conversation, and I do respect CT, this is why if it came down to it, I would literally fight for a republic. So, yeah. Mellerboat says, thank you @Counterpoints. Appreciate you. Culls @Counterpoints' greatest strength is his poker face. Yeah, there was a few times that I wanted to laugh or smirk or whatever, but I'm also trying to be polite, and appeal to everybody. Can you have Counterpoints talk about Europe's tendency to cut down the tall trees of society? Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing. We could do that in the future. So I would say that we need to find a balance where people can succeed, but also make sure that the lower or working or middle class people in our society are not the ones who have to suffer in order to make sure that people are free enough to do that. So, yeah, that would be my instinct. And Enkire @Counterpoints. The thing you said about doing the small things you can make to every day in the world a bit better. Problem is that's dependent on people's ideas on what better is. That's true. But there are some things that are universal. Most societies view murder as wrong. Most societies view rape as wrong. And most societies would view opening the door for an old person or giving a poor person food or treating an animal correctly or volunteering your time to muck out stalls or any of that stuff. They would view all of that as positive. So there are some things that would be positive in the middle of Middle East and North Africa, and there are things that would be positive in the middle of the United States, and those things are universal. So I would say find something that is positive for you individually, and then pursue that thing. I think you're right. Leftists and fascists are going to have completely different ideas about what's positive. But I still think that they could probably both open a door for an old lady and serve some soup and, still have a positive impact. Thank you, YouTube, for being the bigger show again. I sincerely appreciate the 25 people who have come out and hung out in Twitch chat. And I think we peaked at 30. But I think we were always between like 30 and 35 on YouTube. So I do appreciate the people on YouTube. Nicholas Mackay @Counterpoints. I'm just layman, but I've read a decent bit of Nietzsche, and the popular perception of him is a bit misleading according to the interpretation I follow. I can send you some info. Yes, please do. _Counterpoints_ on Twitter. You can DM me there, or if you're already in the Discord, then just @me or DM me or whatever, and we'll take it from there. Christian Valeris @Counterpoints. I mean, you said you were going to talk with more distant right people, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see how everybody takes it. Christian Valeris @Counterpoints. While I disagree with CT on many of his views are spicy, I don't felt like he was hiding his power level. Yeah, so, talking about I'm sure if we opened it up specifically to what do you think is going on with the black community and what do you think is going on with, Jewish representation in media, I'm sure we could have gotten spicier, but that's not my goal. My goal is to get to the dissident right community and say, hey, there's alternatives to your perspectives. There's alternatives to your goals. There's alternatives to the sense of despair and degradation and fear and anxiety that you have. And if I can offer you a positive alternative that works within the status quo but also makes your life a little bit better, then I want to offer that to you. So, it's not going to be nobody's going to respond to a fucking finger wag from another fucking libertarian fucking statist apologist, but they might respond to open conversation and an open hand. I understand the left don't want to do this. But the truth is, representing myself as centrist or center right, and then still having some economically redistributist positions while still being anti-racist and not, homophobic or anti-LGBTQ, I think I can still articulate the best parts of Christian conservatism, the best parts of libertarianism, the best parts of even fascism when it comes to political corporatism, but not dictatorship or flexible authoritarianism, and reach these people because I think I speak their language. So hopefully that's helpful. Val Loyola at Counterpoints, very principled view of God. I'm a unificationist. We believe that Heavenly Parent revealed himself through the various religions of the world by way of their culture. Yes, precisely. So perennialism would be in that vein where if something was true, it would remain to be true. If something was false, it would be false. And you would kind of put these things together over time. Perennial meaning eternal or, through the seasons. So perennialism, agnostic deist perennialism is my personal spiritual religion, and I want to represent that. So I think I'm in line with most monotheists, and particularly the Abrahamic branch I think I know relatively well, and I want to take the morality and values that I've been given and pass it on to my son without maybe giving him like a literalist fear of some of the Christian things that I think are counterproductive. So, Grant Maybe at Counterpoints. You're doing a good job. I don't like the guy's politics, but I appreciate your efforts to take him seriously. Thank you, buddy. Appreciated. Christian Valeris at Counterpoints. On Twitter, you said you were going to do a video addressing Sargon and Akkad discussing good versus evil people regarding Stardust coverage of Anna. Yeah, we're absolutely going to do that. Oh my God. I feel like he doesn't understand leftism at all. That boy has been too disconnected from the leftist sphere to understand what they're saying. He's just like projecting like right-wing fucking circle jerk bullshit, circle jerk bullshit on it. Just tuned in. What? Blacks and Jews? I thought this was going to be about Warhammer. Lol. The Lubus, you must be new here. I do politics primarily. I just do Warhammer on the side. So, I love Warhammer, so it's always going to be a part of the channel, and it's actually helped us grow significantly. But one of the primary things that I've done for a really long time has been political debate. So, yeah, sorry. Sorry, buddy. Sorry to disappoint. Or impress. I don't know. Arch Linux 2. At Counterpoint, should Christianity be integral in unifying the U.S. political right and regulating morality in order to protect the common good? Yes and no. So I think that there are certain Christian mores that could be positive and some that could be negative. And we do need to start talking about what unites us rather than what divides us. So we can have a more nuanced conversation about that another night. But I am caught up on YouTube chat. I am caught up on Twitch chat. I don't think I have any donos or let me go. I'm going to go into Stream Elements real quick and see if I have anything in my newsfeed. It might just be the YouTube newsfeed, but I'll go look at it anyways, just since we're at it. And no, I really did have an awesome time tonight. It's interesting to take people who are intelligent and rhetorically dangerous, and take their ideas seriously, but then present your counter reviews. So I just have a bunch of subscribers: Bill Perry, Lewis, Martin Storley, Garon, Tarok, VMC Wolverine, Daniel Velasquez, Sergio Miguel, Abrisk Palau, Silence HD, Emily C, Jan Tomid, and then Name became a member 2 days ago. Bobby B became a member 2 days ago. Torger Anvig became a member 3 days ago. Charlie Blocker became a member 4 days ago, and then Eduardo Camarena became a member 5 days ago. And then the last person who did donos was Weekend Jail. So thank you to all those people for becoming YouTube members. And then unfortunately, let me see if Twitch has a news feed, and I'll thank those people real quick. Would it be under the dashboard? Insights, community, settings, run, manage goals, start a prediction, manage poll, reach out, clip that. I got nothing. I don't know where my newsfeed is. Oh, okay, here we go. Bunch of new followers. Shitloads of followers. Holy shit. Well, thank you for that, even though there's 30 of you. All right, so let me thank these people. Voyeur for Streamer subscribed with Prime. Thank you kindly, buddy. Chrome VOD subscribed for the 2nd month. Fuck yeah. Scrubber AU subscribed for 1 month at tier 1. Thank you. Cullivar gave out 5 community gifted subs. Thanks, buddy. Tiberius rated us. This was all last stuff, but CSP subscribed. Taze subscribed. Thank you. That's my editor, so he's really just paying himself. But Diogenes subscribed at tier 1. Thank you, buddy. And then I think we just have a shitload of followers. So thank you for that. So I'm just going to go back, check the chat one more time, and then I'm going to dip out. All right. Twitch is good. Love you guys. Good night. YouTube, old school at Counterpoints. Why aren't you on Sitch and Adam? Because I'm busy doing my own thing. Christian Valeris at Counterpoints. As a former fan of Sargon, I cringe how far he has fallen down the right-wing rabbit hole. Is there going to be a mask off next Sunday? Yes, absolutely. There was supposed to be a mask off tonight, but I double booked, and then I did have some family drama. My dad, God bless him, he had a pretty serious medical incident and had to go into the hospital. He is okay. He underwent surgery, but it is something that he's going to have to deal with for the rest of his life. So it's unfortunate, but it's part of life. So I'm dealing with that as best I can. And, it is what it is. Like, I love my father. I communicated that to him. He loves me. He communicated that to me. And, we don't have a perfect relationship, but who does? And basically what I would say, I always have to fuck with this thing because it's not an autofocus. I'm literally using my forehead wrinkles to help focus the camera. But, it's not perfect, but I love him and he loves me and he's provided for my entire life and he's a good man. And it sucks that what he's going through and it sucks that age is a thing and mortality is a thing, but we're pulling through it as best we can. So that's all we can do. So, I appreciate y'all being here. Thanks for swinging by. I appreciate Tiberius D for putting up with my bullshit by allowing me to go do another show, but hey, it was fun as fuck. And I appreciate y'all. So I'm going to go to the end screen so chatters can talk to each other for another few minutes, but then I'm going to go brush my teeth and then I'm going to stop the stream. So if you guys want to yell at each other or at each other in the comment section for another few minutes, you can do so. Have fun. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming out. Have a great night.